How's going guys, welcome to the channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto was the shinobi of the sun god Harem? Part 2. If you wants to see awesome fanfiction like this, don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get into the video. Escanor smiled as he stopped a horse, finally made it. Been looking forward to this for an entire year. The amazing Vassal Fight Festival, a good thing it was held today else I'd probably lose some business, he sighed happily. Margaret raised a brow, seriously, this is why you came here, for the fighting festival? She asked him as she crossed her arms under her bust. Escanor shook his head, not all the time. I usually come here for trade. I have to sell some of my stock to keep my tavern as well as pay for the land it's on. I only found out about this roughly 6 years ago. Back then there was a giantess that came here, but after she got a bit tipsy they got banned. That was a fun year, let me tell you. Matrona sure can throw back a few barrels. He said laughing. Calming down he sighed in remembrance, I wonder if she ever settled down with that Zalpa fellow that saved her. Nice folks they were. He said as he stood up and climbed down before he held up his hand, Milady. He said as he took her hand gently in his own to help her climb off the wagon. She might have, but in order to find out, you should just ask her, Margaret said. HMPH, that is a good idea, except it's been so long I forget where they lived, he stated. That's too bad, I bet she'd be happy to see an old friend like you after so long. Escanor nodded, yeah, but it's best to let bygones be bygones. Now why don't we get ready to celebrate a good day of business? He smirked. Margaret gave a blank look, you're joining the fights aren't you? She said causing him to stiffen. Just a couple rounds princess, he said. And why do I get the feeling I'm going to be roped into this unwillingly? She asked herself. That's the spirit. Alright, let's go make some money. Escanor cheered. Margaret shook her head at his antics, but she couldn't help the smile that grew on her face at seeing the strongest in the kingdom acting like a kid. It's always quite the sight, Margaret thought with a smile, that the strongest in the kingdom can act like such a kid, but that's what I like about him. But that thought, Margaret blushed a tiny bit but still kept her smile as she followed Escanor through the various shops and stalls that lined the road. Neither of the two were aware of the events that were to occur today. Meanwhile, while Escanor and Margaret had already arrived and were now walking around the festival, we find a familiar giant pig approaching the festival. On top of the pig's head sat Minato as she stared into space, thinking about how her brother might be. Was he okay? Does he have a family? Is he happy? Did he have children? So many questions were flowing through her mind, but with just as many positive questions she had just as many negative ones. Had he died? Was he in pain? Did he ever have his heart broken? Was he dying? Calm down, Kit. Minato was broken from her thoughts as she felt her consciousness being pulled into her mindscape. Opening her eyes, Minato was greeted to the sight of a wide open field and a bright blue sky filled with clouds. However, the real attention catcher was the giant nine-tailed fox that stood in front Minato. Everyone should know what kurama looks like, so I'm not going to do a description. Kurama? Minato asked, confused as to why she was here. I understand you're worried, Kit, Kurama said in a tone that, despite being deep and demonic, still held a feminine tone to it, signifying that Kurama was female, but you shouldn't worry too much. You don't want your dear Ani-chan to see you with grey hairs, do you? At Kurama's teasing, Minato blushed bright red before exclaiming, I have no idea what you're talking about. Kurama chuckled as she began to shrink and change until standing in front of Minato was a beautiful woman instead of a massive fox. She had long red hair that reached just above her toned heart-shaped ass that was contained by a pair of black spats, and her eyes had turned into an amber color. She wore a red tunic with a white tribal fox design that hugged her F-cup breasts. Sure you don't, the now human-looking Kurama said with a knowing smile, and her voice no longer sounding demonic, so all those vivid dreams you would have when you were younger between yourself and your brother were just caused by hormones and puberty. Minato's blush returned full force at that as she knew Kurama had her there. She knew full well that with Kurama being able to hear her thoughts, there was nothing she could hide. Minato's blush grew even more when she heard Kurama laughing at her expression before she looked down in embarrassment. After a minute, Kurama finally managed to calm down, and she said, anyways, your incestuous feelings aside, Kurama ignored Minato's pouting glare, you shouldn't worry about the what-ifs. It won't do you any good and will only serve to stress you out even more. Besides, despite being separated from me and not knowing where it is, I can tell that he's doing just fine thanks to my chakra inside of him. Minato calmed down at that and smiled, that's good to hear, and you're right. I can't let myself get caught up in all the worries and doubts. I just miss him, and when I start thinking about him, I can't help but be worried. Kurama smiled at Minato before moving over and giving her a hug that Minato returned as she said, I understand, Kit, but just remember, you're not the only one worried about him. Your mom, Mikoto, and her sister, Lady Tsunade, and the others from our group and some from the village, are all worried about him. You just need to have faith that you'll reunite with him someday. Mito smiled as she and Kurama separated before nodding her head and saying, "Thank you Kurama, and you're right, I just need to have faith." Kurama nodded and gave a soft sigh before saying, "Now I think you need to get going. That blonde brat is speaking and it sounds important from the sound of things," she ordered the teen. Outside the seal. "So, with that in mind, most of us shall have to join the fighting so we can have a better chance at getting Gideon back," Meliodas said. "But Captain, Diane can't come, remember? The people have banned any giants from participating, so how will she be able to get it back?" King asked. This was King, the son of Sloth. Although he is a fairy, his form resembles that of a young boy with short brown hair, a high forehead, thin eyebrows, and brownish-orange eyes. He wears a long orange and an aqua sweatshirt with a hood and navy blue sleeves, quarter-length navy blue pants, and short boots with large buttons matching his hoodie. He also carries a green leopard pattern pillow, which is a transformation of his spear chastiful. Despite being a fairy, he has yet to grow visible wings. And that is where our friends come in. While we are busy fighting, they can place their runes all over it discreetly, and when the time comes we can simply have them use their power to make it appear somewhere we can go to get it, the demon prince said grinning. Captain, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I just got back, and I think you should hear this, Ban, the foxin of greed, said. What is it? No titty bars? Meliodas asked. Pervert. Mito cried as she smashed a mug across his head, causing a large lump to appear. No. Well that is a good thought, it's not what I was going to say, Ban said. Then, what is it? King asked, causing the immortal to look at him. They found the divine axe Rita, and it's en route now. It'll be here in an hour if not less, Ban said seriously. That shouldn't be possible. There are only two ways of moving it, and with good reason. The first would be if Escanor himself had it in his hand, while the other would be to teleport it with magic. And there is only one mage powerful enough to move such a heavy object, and she's in hiding right now, Meliodas said seriously. What exactly is the divine axe Rita, and why are those the only two ways of moving it? It's just an axe, right? Anko asked. It's not your ordinary run-of-the-mill weapon. That axe is Escanor's ultimate weapon. It's imbued with special properties that allow him to store his energy inside and summon it when he is desperate. There is also the fact that it's several times heavier than Diane's sacred treasure, Gideon the Warhammer, making it the heaviest of all the known sacred treasures. It was designed specifically just for Escanor to use in battle due to its nigh indestructibility, Ban explained to the ninja. Which is confusing, because it takes at least two sins or the captain himself to move it. They would need an army to move it with the sheer weight alone, King said in thought. Like seriously, who had found it and how did they manage to transport it? This was too coincidental, there was something amiss. That's unsettling. Just how strong is this Escanor guy to have such a heavy weapon? Tsunade asked the Sins. Much stronger than me that's for sure, Ban said softly. I can't even compare to the guy, hell I don't think even I could scratch him going all out, King said shrugging. He can hold me off with just a finger, Diane said shyly. He's much stronger than any of the Sins except for one of us, but she only puts him to sleep, but she has to be both quick and it has to be at a certain time to knock him out, Meliodas admitted. How much power does this guy have? It's like you're all hyping him up to be some type of god, Satsuki said with a huff. Listen girly, all of you can attack him with your strongest attacks, but in the end, all it'll do is make him laugh. You could even pin him to the ground using those special runes of yours, but he'll simply break through them with hardly any effort. Escanor is the lion sin of pride for a reason. This is a saying that he follows, why should I hate someone who's weaker than me? He even says that all he feels is pity for those weaker than him. You should take those words to heart because if you ever try to fight him, you'll lose before the battle even begins. He's taken on entire armies and beaten them all on his own. He is the definition of unrivaled strength, Ban told the young uchiha seriously. Okay, so he's powerful. If you could tell us, seeing as we've seen all of your abilities, just what exactly is Escanor's power? Mikoto asked the Sin. It is up in the sky, burning bright right now, a big golden ball of pure light, Meliodas said quietly. But the only thing up in the sky is the sun, why would he have a power that's related to it? Hana asked in confusion. That's because his power rises and falls with the sun. It's a simple name, but it is more than likely the strongest ability in all of the world. Even the gods tremble in his presence. And at high noon, no person in the world can rival him, Diane said quietly. He's only been beaten once, but that was just before he became a knight of our order, she told the ninja. Meliodas, are you guys being serious? Hawk asked shivering, this guy sounds like trouble, and if what you say is true then how can any of us beat him? The pig squawked. We're serious. Escanor is our strongest member. And as to who can beat him, none of us. And I only beat him cause I tricked him, Meliodas said. Minato-sama, seeing as Escanor-sama's weapon is being brought here, do you think that Lord Escanor is still hiding, or is he somewhere else? Elizabeth asked quietly. No, if I know Escanor well enough, which I do, then he's more than likely already here, Meliodas said grinning. Huh, what do you mean? The princess asked. He never could resist a good brawl, Ban chuckled as he remembered times when he and Escanor would mess around. Even though it more often than not ended with him getting completely demolished. Yeah, and then at night, the guy was cool and relaxed, whereas his other self tends to be super arrogant, King huffed. Huh, does he have a split personality? Tsunade asked. No, he is just arrogant during the day. Usually, he's far more honest and doesn't give a crap about what happens, the fairy said. He's actually very laid back during the day now that I think about it, he admitted in thought. Well, we better get going, cause if we're going to meet this Escanor kid, we need to be fast, Tsunade said. Actually, there needs to be someone to watch the bar while we're out, Meliodas said. While we're busy trying to win the Gideon, the bar is still going to be open for business to those that don't make it to the next round of the fighting. I think at least 3 or 4 of us should stay here, the Dragon Sin said. Well, Tsunade-sama could dish out the alcohol, and Shizune-chan can serve it. Hana-chan, Madami-san, Hitomi-san and Hisui-san can stay and help prepare meals for the patrons who enter, Kushina said in thought. That's a good idea. I've been meaning to sample these wines, Tsunade said, rubbing her hands together eagerly. Finally. A full day of drinking was finally here, she could hardly wait. You're not going to be drinking anything Tsunade-sama, Shizune said, shaking her head. Fine, ruin my fun, the busty blonde said. Alright, operation. Retrieve Gideon and Rita as a go. Let's have some fun. Meliodas said grinning. Yeah, we're gonna lose, Escanor could wipe the floor with all of us blindfolded, Ban laughed. I'm gonna go earn some money to buy some stuff, Hawk said as he walked around the bar and had Elizabeth strap a barrel of ale to him. Now I can have that extra large eating bowl when I get done selling this stuff, the pig said happily. That is if one of the 2 greedy children cough Meliodas and Ban cough, didn't take the money for themselves and use it. Alright, it's time to find Escanor and win this fight festival, Diane said happily. You do realize you're staying here right Diane? Meliodas asked her. Oh go strip a woman's panties off perv, she responded. I already did, he winked at her. Perv, the giantess grumbled. I am no mere pervert, young lady, Meliodas said. Oh yeah, if not then what are you? Mito asked. I'm a super pervert. Meliodas cheered out. In Konoha, hot springs. In the Leaf Village, a certain pervert that was peeking on the girl's side of the hot springs couldn't help but grin. I feel a kindred spirit out there, I must meet my brother, he decided to himself. Back in Britannia. Yep, he's Jiraiya's spawn alright, Tsunade decided. I don't think the idea of him meeting Jiraiya-sama is a good one, Shizune whispered into Kushina's ear. No doubt, if they did meet all the girls would need to carry a bat or something to stay safe. It's bad enough he took all of our panties back in the Forest of White Dreams without any of us knowing. I don't think the world can survive 2 of them, she responded. I'll stay here and keep Lady Diane company, Elizabeth said. You all go have fun at the fight festival, she said waving. Well, okay. We'll try, King said to the princess. Back with Naruto, Escanor and the princess. Margaret gulped as she took in the sights, it was both beautiful and smelly. Beautiful due to all of the colors and unusual sights she was taking in. Smelly because of all the guys that were sweating up a storm. It was bad. However, as Margaret was looking around, Naruto had noticed a person that stood out amongst the crowd and placed a hand on the princess's shoulder, causing her to give a jolt. Stay calm, he told her before he grabbed a cloak and placed it over the young woman's shoulders. Cover your head, they can't recognize me in this form, so I can hide in plain sight. I won't risk your safety in a place like this, he told the woman. Okay, but why all the cloak and dagger stuff, Escanor? Why do I have to hide? She asked him. It's simple. Hoser and Griamore are here, and I suspect your sister is running around the village as well, the man told her. Huh, they're here? Margaret gasped as she hurried to cover her head with the cloak's hood, but how did they find me? I left a search for the sins in secret, she told her escort. I don't think they know you are here, but it is best to be safe rather than sorry, Naruto said. Can I even compete in the tournament with them here? She asked Escanor. Only if you can keep yourself covered with that cloak, princess. If not, I doubt that you can remain here as you are, he told Margaret. But, I thought you were gonna protect me, she whispered out to him. I would rather die than let anything happen to you, for if the time for me to reveal myself comes, then I shall do all in my power to keep you out of harm's way. Even if it means using my full power to hurt those close to you, as it is my sworn duty to protect you, Escanor declared. The Escanor, Margaret whispered as her cheeks began to heat up in a blush. Hold on, there's more, look, Escanor said pointing in a direction. But that's Margaret gasped out in shock. Ah yes, my former comrades are here as well, Escanor whispered to her. Not only that, but so were several people he had been hoping to avoid for the rest of his life. He loved his family, but he didn't want to involve them in his problems, and it was the very problem of his life in the Leaf Village that he had left. Anzo Shimura had tried to order him to either kill the 4th Hokage and vote for him to be voted in as the new Hokage, join his ranks of Root Anbu and be his loyal pet, or try to fight him and die. It had only been through sheer luck that he had cut the man's arm off and killed him before he fled the village in order not to arouse suspicion. If it had been revealed that he killed an elder, he would be branded a traitor for life and executed, regardless of his relation to the Hokage as his son. It was strange that even in death the man still gave him so much trouble. The only real question he could ask is, why were they here? We have to register with the others, Escanor told Margaret. Are you sure about this? What if Hoser and Griamore figure out it's me and you? She asked worriedly. That is why there is a thing called an alias, Escanor smiled at her. Okay, and just how exactly do you expect me to make an alias if I don't know a good one? She responded to the man. I have a simple one, you are Rosa, and I am Naruto, Escanor said smiling. It was strange, the fact he had to use his actual name, rather than the one he had grown so used to for nearly 2.5 decades. Fish cake, seriously? Margaret said, trying not to laugh at the name. It also means maelstrom, the man grumbled. No respect at all. It's also a ramen topping, the princess snickered. Escanor grumbled some more before sighing as he said, let's just go and sign up. I would like to get this done as soon as possible in order to avoid meeting any of them. Margaret giggled as she wrapped her arms around one of Escanor's and said, alright, I'll stop teasing you. But you have to admit, you had that one coming after all the teasing you've done to me in the past. Escanor chuckled and said, yes, I suppose you're right. Now come on, let's hurry and sign up so that we can enjoy a bit more of the festival before the fights begin. With that, the two went over to where the fighters were signing up and placed their names. Once they were done, they decided to walk around the festival for a bit to see what they could find. Margaret found several styles of clothing she thought Escanor would like, while Escanor found some pieces of jewelry and various perfumes he thought Margaret would like. Though neither of the two bought anything right away since they wanted the other's opinion on which they would prefer. Margaret showed Escanor some new jackets and shirts that she thought he would enjoy. She was extremely pleased when he said he did enjoy them and would start wearing them after the festival. After that, the two went over to a different stall where Escanor showed Margaret some of the perfumes and jewelry pieces he thought she would enjoy. While he was a little disappointed at missing a few, he was glad that she enjoyed some of the scents and even got some bracelets and hairpieces. As the two had some fun, they soon realized it was almost time for the fights to begin and made their way back to the arena. As the two made their way to the large arena, which in all honesty was a large rock platform that had been raised roughly a couple meters, the announcer came out and began talking. He was a very tiny man, with a helm covering his face, a cloth that draped from the helm that covered his body, and very thin limbs, which were the only parts of his body not covered. Alrighty, is everyone excited? The man cheered out, causing others to cheer in excitement. That's what I'm talking about. The announcer said happily. This man was Love Helm. He was a holy knight in disguise as he searched for the 7 deadly sins. Everyone. This is the 758th annual Vaisal Fight Festival, so you know what that means. If you win. You win big. If you lose, then you should never have come. This is a fight where all the top dogs come to play rough and show everyone what they're made of. He announced loudly. Escanor snorted, none of these people could even come close to being a top dog in his eyes, for there was none that could match his strength. Everyone that is participating, please step onto the large platform before you. As per the rules, the first round is a preliminary elimination round to determine just who is gonna go on to the further rounds, Love Helm announced to the people. Meliodas looked to his friends, alright, that means us, he said grinning. Just try not to draw too much attention, Captain? Ban said to the man. He was rather upset he had to replace his threads. Now who do you think I am? I would never try to purposely blow or cover as mere participants of a fight festival when trying to help my friends get their sacred treasure back for the fun of it, the captain of the 7 deadly sins smiled. That's a lie if I ever heard one, King responded to the demon. Now that hurts, Meliodas pouted at the comment. Naruto stood next to Margaret and leaned into her, remember, don't go overboard while using your gift, just try to keep a low profile. And whatever you do, stay away from that group of women over there, he said with a bit of bitterness, while pointing to the group of Kunoichi next to the sins. They'll figure your identity out faster than anybody else in this place would. Keep on your toes and have fun, but make sure to keep your distance unless necessary, he told her. Alright, thanks for the info. The woman responded to him. Mito was looking around to try and see if anybody resembled Escanor, but she wasn't seeing anything. Does anybody see him? she asked her group. That's a negative big perv, Anko said as she looked around as well. Anko, you're the perv. I'm Smallred. Get your head in the game. Mito said in a hiss. Okay, just trying to provide humor. The snake mister said. Now is not the time. Kurenai said, if you haven't forgotten, we're here to get the Gideon for Diane and then see if this Escanor person is here so we can find Naruto-san's location. So stop acting immature. She told her friend. Love Helm cleared his throat before the ninja could start arguing even more. Alright, that does it for the entries, let the elimination round begin. He chanted loudly as the men began to smash their fists into one another to try and prove their masculinity. Escanor yawned as he grabbed a man by the face and simply gave a shoulder toss that sent the man sailing out of the ring screaming before he leaned back to headbutt another, causing the man to collapse unconscious. He smacked a man in the face as he tried to punch him, and the man flew over others' heads and out of the arena as well. Is there anybody else? He asked curiously. Van grinned as he did a few jabs. Yeah, there we go, much better, he said as he adjusted to the new jacket he had acquired in a fight a few moments ago. Meliodas looked at his best friend in confusion. Ban, where did you get that jacket? He asked curiously. Oh, you know me, Captain, I found it lying about and I just didn't like the idea of such a nice set of threads being wasted that way, the Foxin said grinning. Mito kicked another man in the face and sent him rolling out of the arena. How come, I am the only one being dogpiled by a bunch of perverts? She yelled before she began to smash her fist into another person's face. Ouch, damn it Mito, that hurt. Kurenai said as she held a bloody nose. Oops, sorry Kurenai-sensei, Mito said in embarrassment. Yeah, it's alright. She shrieked as a large man with blue gloves picked her up by the nape of her dress and she furiously tried to hide her underwear. Hey, put me down now, I command you. She yelled at the man furiously blushing in embarrassment. Sorry, but less competition is better. The man said before he tossed her out of the arena. A bit of a distance away a cloaked female watched as a fat blob of a man charged her with his tongue hanging out. I'm gonna show you a good time sweetheart. He said before laughing, only to find the young woman's fist embedded in his gut, causing him to be sent soaring out of the arena and then off the large platform altogether. Pervert. The lady sneered angrily. Pick up an elderly man went as he teetered around drunkenly and managed to avoid elimination. Youngsters needed to learn to respect their elders. He took his bottle that was now empty and threw it down and stepped to the left just as a young brunette woman came rushing at him. He watched in a small amount of satisfaction as she stepped on the bottle and suddenly found herself out of the arena. Life is a box of chocolates, you never hiccup, you never know which kind you'll get. He said smiling before hiccuping once again. Satsuki Uchiha was not a happy camper. Why? Because she had somehow been eliminated from a simple preliminary round filled with dumb men by a bottle of all things. Oh, this sucks. She yelled out. King cried out as a large man picked him up by the hood of his jacket. Hey, let me go right now. He demanded. Briamore found himself laughing at the Fairy King's attempts to get free. Sorry kid, no hard feelings. He said before he simply tossed him out of the arena. Maybe the kid would have better luck next year. And soon enough there were only 12 people left in the arena. Alright, that is it for the preliminary round. All those that are left standing please make your way off and into the little hut right over there for a few minutes while everyone else gets oriented. Love Helm announced loudly. Escanor found himself shrugging as he led Margaret, who had managed to stay cloaked somehow, off the large arena and into the small building. I hope you are enjoying yourself, Rosa. He said using her fake name. You know, I think I am having fun for the first time in a long time, she told him. Meanwhile, in the seal of one Mito Uzumaki, Kurama felt the familiar presence of her chakra and it was very close by. She couldn't tell where exactly as it was very faint, but she could tell it was near. In the little shack. Love Helm cleared his throat as he entered the building. Is everyone having a good time or what? He asked excitedly. Oh yeah, this is great, Meliodas said grinning. Hell yeah, Kushina said while grinning. Alright, that's what I like to hear. Love Helm exclaimed while grinning broadly. So, what comes next? Mito asked. Love Helm cleared his throat. As you all know, round 1 was the preliminary event. The preliminary event consisted of a battle royale where participants had to attempt to push opponents out of the ring and off the arena until a set number of participants remained. Competitors are then free to battle anybody and avoid conflict. The short midget said. We already knew that, why is he going over the tournament rules and stuff? Margaret asked Escanor. I think this is something he does to remind people who are fighting, but I can't be too sure. Oh, okay. That makes sense. The woman said. As for the amazing round 2, it is the main tournament that consists of 1 versus 1 matchup battles between the 12 competitors who have advanced to preliminary, with the matchups being decided by drawing lots. He reminded them. And how does one determine who is fighting who? Hoser asked. That's easy, you write your name down on a piece of paper here and drop it in this hat. I will then draw names 2 by 2, and each set I pull out is the set match until the next round. It's simple. Love Helm stated happily, as per usual. Alright, I guess that doesn't hurt any. The Holy Knight said shrugging. Didn't take a genius for that much. Alright, if everyone will please, step forward and take a slip of paper and write their names on it, Love Helm said to the group. One by one everyone stepped up and took a piece of paper and placed their name on it and dropped the folded paper into the hat. Once that had been done, Love Helm then shook the hat around a bit before taking a couple slips of paper out. First round is he read off, Griamore vs. Matrona. He announced, causing Naruto to raise a brow. Last he checked, Matrona was roughly 30 feet tall, not 5 feet tall. Not bad Griamore, hope you don't hurt the little lady, Hoser said grinning. Oh go eat some wasabi, the giant man said grinning. It was his friend's favorite food. Second on the list is Love Helm said, reaching into the hat once again before he pulled out the paper, Tzu vs. Hoser. He declared. This'll be a piece of cake, Tzu said grinning. Ah, you wish. Hoser snorted. A simple civilian, give him a break. After them is Love Helm reached into the hat once again, Naruto Uzumaki, the midget said, getting gasps of shock from the ninja, versus Kane Barzard, Love Helm stated grinning. Mito looked at her mother with shocked and hope-filled eyes as she whispered, do you think it's him, Mom? Kushina was just as shocked and whispered back, I don't know, sweetie. But we can only hope for the best and that it is him. Anko then joined in on the whispering, hold on you two, we shouldn't jump to conclusions. Right now, all we know is that his name is being used. However, you both need to remember, he wasn't treated very well back in the village, so if this is him, he may think we are trying to force him back, which could cause more harm than good. So right now, let's just wait, cause if it is him, we will approach him slowly so as to not scare him off again. Kushina and Mito were about to agree until Anko cut them off, but if this isn't him, and it just turns out to be someone using his name, we will remain calm and simply ask where he learned this name, since even if it isn't him, it's still a lead, alright. Kushina and Mito both looked at each other, silently wondering when Anko of all people became the mature one, but then remembered she only likes to act childish. They then realized that Anko had a point, and if this was Naruto, then they would need to take their approach slowly, but if it wasn't, then they at least had a new lead on where Naruto could be. Looking back at the waiting Anko, Kushina and Mito nodded their heads before saying, alright. With that, the three turned back to Love Helm who seemed to have been rambling on about previous tournaments, meaning they hadn't missed any information. After those two he then reached into the hat once again, Minato vs. Bon, he announced. Hoser and Griamore perked up at the names. Now, while the name sounded familiar they weren't exactly the same, but they weren't stupid enough to think it was a real name. Hoser cleared his throat, nice name, Minato, Bon. He said grinning at them. The two sins tensed up at his words, he couldn't have figured it out that easily could he? Griamore nudged his friend, dude, mind your own business. Leave them alone and you can talk to them later, he told the dirty blonde-haired man. Alright you got me, Hoser said, raising his hands in the air. Hoser cleared his throat once more, and after them, the next two is Kushina vs. Anko, and lastly it is Mito vs. Rosa. He told the group. And that is how this is going to go. And since we have an uneven number at the end of this fight, there will be one last match to determine the winner in the semifinals. He cheered, getting yells of enjoyment from the group. A distance away. The sound of horses walking and men grunting as they pulled something could be heard. At the head of this group was one violet-colored Princess Veronica as she led a large team of men to the Vizel Fight Festival. The current load they were pulling, a large golden axe that belonged to a holy knight of the realm. Veronica marched with purpose and a gleam of hope in her eyes, just hang in there for a little while longer. Lord Escanor. I will not allow any of the sins to die today. The young princess thought to herself. A further distance away. Vila marched with a purpose, her mission was simple, eradicate the 7 deadly sins with no mercy shown. Next to her was her old friend, Jericho. The lavender-haired young beauty had been humiliated by Ban the day he had escaped, and she had vowed to get back at him one way or another, and if she could be the one to kill an immortal, then she would surely be promoted to Holy Knight for sure. She would have her justice, one way or another, she would have it. Back at the fight festival. Love Helm and the others walked out and watched as the men around cheered for the next round. Round 2 of the Vizel Fight Festival is soon to be underway, but who shall come out on top of all these monsters? He cried out. Ox snorted, ale, get your high-quality ale here. Only a single shilling for a mug. He announced. Yeah, Porky, I'll take a mug. A man cried out. Same here. Another said loudly. And he just now started advertising he's got booze. Hawk, I think you need to learn to prioritize your thoughts, Meliodas said to the pig. I think it was a good idea to wait if I hadn't, then I would have made little sales, rather than the many I just started to make. The pig shouted. Hey, can I get 3 mugs over here? A man called out. 3 shillings if you please. The pig said as he took the money and let the man pour his booze. Helm cleared his throat. Is everyone ready? He cried out, getting cheers from the spectators, then let the quarterfinals of the Vasil Fight Fest begin. He cheered. Up first is the mighty Griamore of the Lion's Holy Knights versus Matrona. He announced as the two walked up onto the large platform. Before we begin, I'm going to have to ask the lady to remove her cloak. As there are no weapons allowed, it is only right to show sportsmanship to your fellow competitors. Helm requested from Matrona. Matrona didn't hesitate and threw the dark purple cloak off to reveal a startling sight to the members of the boar hat. Isn't that the bar uniform? King asked in confusion. It is, but why would this chick be wearing it? Mito asked, clearly confused by her attire. It's not Elizabeth, she doesn't know how to fight, Hawk said, snorting. No, but that doesn't mean it can't be one of their friends in disguise, Ban said, shrugging. It's probably Shizune-san, Satsuki said. She didn't know how wrong she was. Now, the rules of the next set of matches are simple. You can win by either forcing your opponent to submit, force them out of the ring, or knocking them out. It's easy to remember, so don't let it go to your heads. Helm declared, and with that out of the way, let's get this show underway. He proclaimed, getting cheers from everyone. Griamore looked to Hoser and grinned. I think this chick doesn't like me, she hasn't said a word, he said. Yeah, it's usually Veronica that does that to you, Hoser said, smirking. That's Princess Veronica, please respect her title, Hoser, Griamore said to his friend. He stands at a whopping 7 feet tall and weighs in at 400 pounds, it is the Holy Knight, Griamore. Helm announced as he motioned to the man in question. Then waving a hand towards the lady he called out, standing at 5 feet 5 inches tall and weighing none of your business, it's Matrona. He declared. At least tell us her measurements, Meliodas called out. Naruto hearing this shook his head, that is both rude and disturbing, he told himself. Also, her measurements are 56, 32, 35, he said. Margaret felt her eyes widen while her cheeks reddened in embarrassment. How'd you come up with that? She asked in shock. I have no idea, he responded. Maybe the captain had rubbed off on him somehow. And with the introductions finished, let the fight begin. Helm declared. And without even hesitating, Matrona burst forth and began to lay powerful blows into Griamore's gut so hard that blasts of air could be seen arsing off his stomach. Holy crap, she's fast. King said with wide eyes. Fast and strong, she's rushed in close, delivering a flurry of blows to Griamore. Helm announced in glee. As Matrona continued to lay her fists into her opponent's gut, a purple glow emitted from Griamore's body causing her to stop from shock. I must not be defeated here, Griamore said honestly. This isn't personal, so I ask for forgiveness, he said calmly. You should have ended it when you had the chance, for now, you lose. Please witness my magical power wall, the Holy Knight declared as a purple ball surrounded his body in a large bubble. Naruto nodded his head. Not bad, he said, intrigued. Yeah, Griamore's gotten so strong these past few years, Margaret said, smiling at her friend. Ban narrowed his eyes. Judging from the strength of his magic, I would have to wager this guy to be a holy knight, Meliodas said. Yeah, he usually came with Hoser or Gilthander when they visited me. King said. I just hope he or Hoser don't recognize me. A little late for that, Sir King, Hoser said from behind the Fairy King. AHH. The fairy cried out, jumping in shock. Jay, just when did you get there? He asked in shock. Been here for a few minutes actually, Hoser told the knight. Besides, I have some information you and your fellow sins might want to hear, he told the Dark Knights of Lions. Sure, as long as it doesn't cause a scene, Meliodas said calmly. Keep your guard up, Dreyfus is mobilizing to kill all of you. I'm not sure when, but today was just a way of drawing the sins out into the open. My mission is to ensure that you all survive. How you survive is up to you, he told the small man. Thanks for that, Meliodas said, smirking. Don't mention it, Hoser smiled. Hey, you there, Mito said, pointing to Hoser. Just who are you? She asked. The name's Hoser, and I'm a holy knight loyal to the king and the king alone, Hoser said. Tell me, do you know of a man named Escanor Pride? She asked. Anybody that lives in these lands knows of the man. He's the strongest man alive for a reason, and his prowess in battle is unmatched by none in these lands or anywhere else for that matter. As far as I'm concerned, any beef you have with him is better off being left alone. You'll die if you try to challenge him to a fight. Hoser said. I don't wish to fight him, I wish to find him so that I can locate my elder brother, and it said that he is the only one that knows of his location, Mito responded. Hoser chuckled. I hate to break it to you, but the 7 deadly sins haven't been seen as a group for roughly the better part of a decade, so anything you think you know about your brother's location is probably old as dirt, he informed her. So, care to explain why you want me to do that when the only chance of me finding my brother is possibly here? I'm sorry, but I won't be doing that, she said. I am only saying that you need to ignore your desire to fight him, Hoser said. And my search, you want me to abandon that now? I'm sorry, but the minute I find Escanor, I will get the answers I want, regardless if he is alright or not. So don't tell me I can't, cause I won't. Also, why are you hiding things? It's clear that you are, she said. I have to hide things, cause if I do reveal what I know, then everyone here is in danger. All I can tell you is to stay on guard, he told her before he walked away. Back in the arena, Matrona charged towards Griamor's wall and began to smash her fists into it, only to have no luck in getting past it. Griamor sighed and shook his head. My ability is the manifestation of my resolve to protect the princess and her family. He told her as he made it grow in size. I must insist that you leave the ring. He told Matrona. Oh my. Lovehelm said excitedly, look at that would you, thanks to Griamor's mysterious power, Matrona has been pushed to the edge of the ring. He announced, I think Matrona's in big trouble here. He stated. I shall be advancing to the next round. Griamor stated, if Her Majesty Princess Veronica were to give the word, I'd make anyone grovel before me. This goes for the 7 deadly sins themselves and their captain. He declared. Matrona grunted as she held Griamor's power back using both her hands. Oh yeah, like that's ever going to happen. She said, drawing back a fist and then smashed through Griamor's magic barrier, shocking everyone present. She then charged through the hole he had made and then jumped up to smash her knee into his chin that threw him up and out of his own power, through the air and off the large platform to the ground several stories below, thus making her the victor. And as she did this, her hat had somehow fallen off her head. Matrona raised a finger into the air smirking at her victory. Lovehelm quickly spoke up, Griamor is out of the ring, the winner is Matrona. He declared loudly. Hoser grinned, now that is what you call power. I never thought there could be someone that could break through that ability using their bare hands. He said to himself. Mita rubbed her eyes, hey, are my eyes playing tricks on me? She asked herself. There's no way that could be her. Anko said in shock. Hey guys, isn't that Kurenai trailed off? Captain, please tell me I'm dreaming. King asked. The lass that had defeated Griamor trotted over excitedly, oh well, I guess the cat's out of the bag. She said grinning as she jumped down to stand beside her friends, yep, it's me. She said excitedly. Diane. Meliodas asked her, how in the heck did you get so small? He asked. Yeah, what happened to you? King asked. Tell us, how did you manage to get to this size? Ban asked his friend. Also, where is Princess Elizabeth? Kushina asked. Yeah, wasn't she with you before we left to come here? I thought she was going to help make some food with the others at the Boar's Head. Kurenai asked her. I'm here, a soft voice said, causing the group to look around in confusion. I'm right here. Elizabeth's voice said, causing Diane to blush as she grabbed the blue handkerchief over her bust and spread it open, causing King to look at the tiny princess in shock. Shock King. King declared. No way, is that you princess? Mito asked in shock. She's so tiny, Anko said with wide eyes. Eh heh, Meliodas giggled perversely. Pervert. Kushina yelled as she smashed her fist down atop the blonde's skull. You still didn't answer the question, Diane, Kurenai said. Let's go somewhere else to discuss this, Diane said before walking away to the small hut that decided the matches. Upon entering it, Kushina placed a hand to the wall and created a set of silencing seals. There, it's safe to talk now. She told the group. Okay, so, the reason I'm like this is because of a strange giant mushroom, Diane said wincing. The giant mushroom? Meliodas asked. Yeah. She said calmly, in fact, it happened just a couple minutes after all of you left for the festival, she informed the group. Elizabeth and I had been asked to gather ingredients by Shizune and Makoto so they could cook, so we went out into the forest to search for ingredients. She said recounting what happened, I think sometime in between Elizabeth scared an animal and she had cried out, so I had run over to check and see if she was alright. However, when I got to her there was this strange looking mushroom. I decided that it'd make a good ingredient to use, and so I bopped the top of it, and all I remember after that was being sprayed by some strange pollen and being engulfed in it. She told them, after it cleared away, I was the size of a normal person. She said, shrugging. And thus the reason you are wearing Elizabeth's outfit, right, got it, Meliodas said nodding his head. Yeah, since we didn't have any clothes that could fit me, I had to come with Lady Diane, Elizabeth said softly. And that also explains why you're stuck between her giant knockers. Anko snickered at the sight of the tiny lady. Anko, please restrain the vulgarity. Satsuki sighed out. It must have been an Aringi mushroom variant of the chicken matango. They're monsters that are cowardly and rarely show themselves, and anytime they feel threatened they release spores that shrink living things in size. King said in thought. That makes sense, Diane said. So, with that out of the way, does anyone want to go back to the fighting festival? Meliodas asked. Yeah, let's go, Ban said grinning. And with that, the group rushed outside the second Kushina removed the seals. They managed to leave the building just in time to see an exhausted Tezu fighting against a still fresh Hoser. Man, I didn't think holding back this much would be so boring, the Holy Knight sighed out. Is this what Master Escanor felt when he was teaching us as brats? He asked himself. Below Naruto snickered, those three brats had more energy in them than a pack of hormonal wolves. It was a wonder they didn't stay awake all hours from the sheer amount they had. Margaret shook her head. No, I'm sure you had it easy with those three dummies, she said. It was still fun, Naruto said grinning at the memories. Alright, I guess I can stop torturing you now, sayonara, Hoser said before he punched his fist out and unleashed a massive twister from his hand that launched Tezu off the arena, much like Grimmar had been. And the winner is, Hoser. Love Helm declared, causing the spectators to cheer loudly. Naruto nodded his head, it seems Hoser has improved a little, though he could learn some respect towards his elders. I may just have to teach him that. He said scowling. Hoser felt a shiver run up his spine. I don't like this feeling, it feels just like those times I was learning from Master Escanor. He thought to himself. Alright, up next, we have our own, three-time champion, Naruto Uzumaki. Love Helm called out, causing the people to cheer loudly as he removed his glasses to bulk up a bit as he handed them to Margaret versus Kane Barzard the Flame. He announced. Care to explain why you are removing your glasses, Escanor? Margaret asked. It is for a show. Kane Barzard has absolute control over fire, it is time to see which flame burns brighter, he told her. Meliodas and the other Sins felt their eyes widen in shock as a pulse of power washed over them and they looked to Naruto as he walked up onto the arena. Ban gulped as he looked at the hulking figure. Hey captain, isn't that he stopped himself as he just didn't know if he was right or wrong. Oi, is he serious? King asked in shock. Just what in the hell does he think he's doing? Diane asked herself. There's no doubt about it, that's Escanor. Meliodas declared. The group of ninja felt their eyes widen in shock. Kushina took a step back as she sensed the man's power. That's Escanor, he's a monster. She said in shock. There's just so much chakra. Satsuki gulped in terror. There's no way this guy's a human with that much power, Anko said in surprise. Holy shit, he's huge. Mito said wide-eyed. Standing at 8 feet even and weighing in at 600 pounds of pure muscles, it's Naruto Uzumaki. Love Helm declared as the people cheered as he waved. Love Helm then motioned to the man's competition and his opponent for the match, standing at a height of 4 feet 8 inches and weighing in at roughly 150 pounds, it's Kane Barzard. Love Helm announced. Good afternoon, Kane Barzard Ono, Naruto greeted his opponent. Naruto Uzumaki, they say you hold incredible durability, I am looking forward to testing that defense, Kane said, surprisingly sober for a man that had been stumbling around the arena a few minutes ago. There is only one way to find out, may the best man taste victory, Naruto told his opponent. Indeed, Kane responded. If both competitors are ready, begin. Love Helm called out. I aim to finish this as fast as I can, so no hard feelings young man, Flames of Atlas Kane declared as blue flames burst up into existence around his arm, searing destruction blast Kane called out as he released a powerful wave of fire at his opponent. Naruto however simply stood still as the flames washed over his body. Kushina felt her eyes widen, is he gonna be okay? I don't think even he can withstand such a powerful attack. She said in shock. He'll be fine, if there is one thing you need to do, it's to not ever underestimate Escanor, Meliodas said calmly. Oh ho, not bad, but is this all you are capable of? Naruto asked from inside the fire of his opponent. For a young man, you sure are a prideful one, Kane laughed as the fire died down to reveal an unscathed Naruto. I'm surprised, it seems the stories do you no justice. Not a single scratch from even the holy flames of Atlas himself can pierce your flesh. Kane said in observation. Of course not, for even a titan knows his place when in my presence, Naruto declared, and that place is beneath me. Anko snorted, you know, he sure is arrogant now that I hear his voice, she said. Yeah, but I guess being practically immune to fire does that for you. I wonder how come he's not hurt by such a devastating attack. Even I could feel my own body wanting to cry in fear, Mito said. Escanor is immune to all forms of fire no matter what type. It's one of the main reasons that when I fought him I had such a hard time, Meliodas said seriously. So, how did you beat him exactly? Kushina asked. He flashed Merlin's tits to him, Diane said as she punched her captain on the back of his head. Okay, not gonna lie, that's a dirty trick, Kushina snickered. Yeah, but it's effective. Ban laughed hard. Naruto raised a finger and a ball of golden flame burst into existence. I thank you for the entertainment, Kane Barzard Ono, but I think it is time I stop playing around. This is my magical power, Sunshine, and I am allowing you but a glimpse of its true glory, he told the elder, Solar Tide, he declared as the ball of flame burst apart into hundreds of smaller orbs and rushed to hit his enemy. I'm old, but I'm not weak. Bomb blast dance. Kane declared as he inhaled deeply and released a tidal wave of flame from his mouth that once it came into contact with the golden flames, caused an explosion of extreme heat that engulfed both of them. As the heat died down and the air cleared, both could still be standing. "Oh ho, so you are unharmed by my attack. How impudent of you." Naruto said as he raised his palm. "It seems I must show you a little bit more," he said, more to himself than to Kane. "HMPH, you're not half bad, young man," Kane said, snickering to himself as he produced a ball of flame in his palm. "Cruel son," Naruto declared as he expanded the ball of flame. "Endless scorch," Kane declared as the flames turned white. "I believe it is time to end this. I would rather not harm anybody," Naruto said calmly. "I must agree, young man, but tell me something, why are you hiding from your past?" he asked curiously. "It is so that others may live in the light that I shall give them," Naruto declared. "I see, it's nice that you are willing to go so far for those you care about," Kane said, smiling softly at the man. "If that is the case, then I must declare I forfeit the match. I am no equivalent to this young man," Kane said as he let his power fade away and watched as Naruto allowed his own to fade from existence. "The winner by forfeit, Naruto Uzumaki," Love Helm called out. Everyone began cheering as they were amazed by such an incredible display of fire and strength. However, several people were excited and scared about getting the chance to face this Naruto person. And it wasn't just the Sins, as even Hoser was feeling a bit excited at the chance to face his old teacher once again. Though a good majority of what he felt was fear at getting his ass handed to him again. For the Kunoichi, however, they were only excited as they finally found the person they were looking for and hoped that he would be able to help them find the one they were searching for. As Escanor stepped down off the platform, he gently took his glasses back from Margaret and placed them back on, allowing his monstrous power to go back to sleep. After all, being around regular people and humans, his magical power would cause them to slowly get burned as they couldn't handle the heat that he gave off. Even Holy Knights and the other Sins had issues powering through the heat, but at least they can hold up better than regular people. "Whatever happened to low-profile him?" Margaret asked with a look. Escanor chuckled while rubbing the back of his head and said, "I apologize, however, every time I've competed in the festival, I always take my glasses off, since I would rather their image of Naruto Uzumaki as of a giant rather than a regular man. Besides, how do you think I have been able to avoid being recognized?" Margaret was about to retort but then realized how right Escanor was, since thanks to his magic, his body will change depending on the time of day. Meaning that so long as he doesn't let anyone see him changing, then he'd be fine. However, there was one thing she had to bring up. "And no one has recognized your mustache?" Margaret asked with a raised eyebrow as she looked back at him, only to see he was looking at her with a pair of eye smiles and a full-on beard with a mustache. "What mustache?" "I will have you know this is no mere mustache, but a beard and a mustache," Escanor told her with a bit of flair that caused her to begin giggling before he joined in with her as he took off the fake beard. "But in any case," Escanor said as the duo calmed down, "no, most people don't seem to recognize my mustache, since most of the time, whenever they fight me, they're too busy watching my attacks than to focus on my face. Plus, any person who did take the time to look at my face usually didn't stay alive for very long, since they lost focus," Escanor finished with a shrug. Margaret nodded her head and said, "I guess you've got a point there. I hope this match is entertaining. My last bout could hardly be called fun," Naruto sighed. "You only say that because it's you," Margaret said. Kushina gulped as she looked at Escanor. Could this be her chance to talk to him? However, before she could make a move, Meliodas held a hand up in front of her. "Huh, what is it, Meliodas?" she asked him. "He's standing beside someone, a female. If the body size and stance the person standing in indicate something," he said, "that means we all have to be cautious when we go over there. The fact that 5 of the 7 deadly sins have gathered in one spot can easily paint a major target onto our back," he told her. "Alright, so what should I do?" she asked him. "It's simple, we all go over to him," Meliodas said. However, before that could happen, Love Helm called out, "And now it is time for the next match," he declared. Captain, I think it's our turn," Ban said, grinning. "Let's do it." Meliodas cheered as he and his comrade jumped up onto the rock platform for their match. Needless to say, the match was both amazingly brutal and showed just why Ban had earned his title as Undead Ban, but it also showed just why the two men were considered to be two of the strongest men in the land of Britannia. Meliodas had seemed to lose all strength before he had been struck by a super-empowered Ban, but it was strange that Meliodas had pulled the win. Of course, Elizabeth had nearly blown their cover, but hey, she was a caring person. Love Helm cleared his throat and announced, "And Malaidafu is the winner," causing people to cheer for him. "Alright, who's next?" Kuranai asked. Love Helm was fast to announce the next match. "Up next, it is Kushina versus the sexy and single snake mistress Anko." Seriously, that's what you put down on your paper, Anko? Kurenai asked her. Hey, why ruin a good thing? Anko asked shrugging. Ban shook his head, it's not a good thing to advertise your single, he told her. Kushina appeared in the arena using a shunshin, and Anko merely hopped up after her. Hope you're ready to be schooled, Anko, she told the younger woman. Oh please, save the banter for someone that cares. I just want to have a good time, the dango-loving woman said, smirking at her colleague. Let the match begin. Lovehelm declared. The two ladies burst forward and engaged in a furious battle of taijutsu, moving around and about the arena in fast flurries. Almost like Meliodas and Ban had before them, their hits were fast and loud to show that they were both serious. Anko slid back as she was kicked in the stomach and her hand transformed into a bunch of snakes, striking Shadow Snake hand. She called out. Oh wow, I didn't know she could do that, King said in awe as he watched Kushina cut the snakes apart using a kunai. Not bad, Anko, but next time, pay attention to an enemy's hands rather than their movements, Kushina said before she raised her hand in a half-ram seal, sealing jutsu. Restrict, she chanted as a bunch of black lines appeared and glowed across her body, causing the snake mistress to cry out in shock as she fell. It's my win, she said, smirking. And it's over in a flash, Kushina has taken the victory. Lovehelm declared. That was fast, I didn't even see her applying the seals to her body, Mito said. Then again, your mom is a Kage-level kunoichi, so she could have done it anytime she felt like, Satsuki said. That is true, but still that fight couldn't have lasted for more than 3 minutes, Mito said in observation. Meh, you win some you lose some, Kurenai said as she watched the two women get off the stage. And for the final round of the quarterfinals, it's Rosa versus Mito. Lovehelm said loudly. Naruto held his hand out, remember, be careful. Just because you have a high aptitude for electricity does not mean you have the means to beat all and win all the fights you find yourself in, he told Margaret. Now hand me your cloak, he told her as he held his hand out. But I thought you said to keep it on no matter what? She asked in shock. It's probably already too late. Hoser has more than likely reported my position of being here. Not only that, but the other sins are here as well, and each of them are exceptional sensors for people's auras. He told her, come on, it'll be fine. He told her calmly. Alright fine, but don't expect anything flashy, she said to him as she removed her cloak and handed it to him. I wouldn't expect anything less, Naruto responded to her. Hold on a second, isn't that King asked in shock. The big sister? Elizabeth cried out in shock. Big sister? The ninja cried out in shock. Yes, but I thought she was still in Lions, not here. How's this possible? Elizabeth asked herself. It's possible that she fled at the same time you did, Ban said in thought. Maybe, but still I didn't think I would see her here, Elizabeth said to herself. Hold on folks, before we get into this, please turn your attention to behind you. Lovehelm declared to the crowd. Turning around, the crowd saw what looked to be a small army of soldiers and horses, and they were dragging something behind them. However, they also saw the large cloud of smoke coming from behind the soldiers, and this was a clear indicator that the object must have been incredibly heavy. Soon, the soldiers made it to the platform and began unhooking all the horses, with the horses pretty much dropping to the ground in exhaustion. It was now that everyone could see that the object was a giant piece of stone, however, that isn't what drew everyone's attention. What drew everyone's attention was the weapon that seemed to have been embedded into the stone. It was the massive axe that was stabbed into the stone that had drawn everyone's attention. Behold, the divine axe Rita. Said to be the strongest of any weapon to have ever been made, but be warned, only the strongest can even remotely lift this weapon. Lovehelm announced. Everyone was shocked at the legendary weapon being here, as many had heard tales of the 7 deadly sins Escanor using the weapon. Anko and the other ninja looked at the axe in confusion. Holy crap, it's huge. Mito said in shock. As expected of the sacred treasure of the 7 deadly sins strongest member, Hoser said grinning. Hey, why is the design so strange, aren't axes supposed to be two-handed? The snake mistress asked. Usually yes, but in this case, it's a one-handed axe, Meliodas said. One-handed, but why? She asked. Don't know, but if I had to guess, I think it's because Escanor uses a lot of brute strength that can make even a dragon king look tame, Meliodas said, shrugging at her. Veronica stepped forth. My name is Veronica Lyons, second princess to the kingdom of Lion's throne. This weapon is the divine axe Rita, as you all know and heard of. The man that uses this axe in battle is said to have no equal, and if the winner of this tournament wishes, then he or she has the right to take either the Gideon hammer that once belonged to Diane, the serpent sin of envy, or this here axe as their prize, she announced. I wouldn't want to take that axe even if it was used by God himself. That thing is supposed to have only one master, and I don't want to invoke the man that uses it, a man said. That may be true, but the axe is made up of 35 tons of pure gold, while the blade is made up of pure platinum inlaid silver. That makes it worth approximately half of the gold reserves in the royal vault, if not more, she said to the man. The ninja felt their eyes widen in shock. He can carry that much weight in a single hand. This guy is so not human, Anko decided then and there. I think Tsunade would be drooling to get her hands on that thing, Satsuki said looking at the blade in the stone. Meliodas nodded and said, well, if I can guess her personality from what I've seen and heard, then she must like gambling a lot. So I would have to agree with you, she would be incredibly happy at winning that axe, though, that would all depend on if she could lift it. Okay, can I ask something without trying to sound stupid? Kushina asked. You technically just asked a question, but I guess it wouldn't hurt. Ban snickered. Just how in the 9 levels of hell does your friend lift that heavy thing? She asked, ignoring the shot at her intelligence. He's Escanor. The 4 said dully at the same time. That's not an answer. Anko cried out. Veronica looked up to the arena and sighed. Margaret, what are you doing up there? She asked her. Margaret, what are you talking about? I'm Rosa. Margaret tried to lie and failed horribly at it. Margaret, we both know that is a lie, and besides you are terrible when it comes to lying. So, what are you doing up there, much less here of all places? Veronica asked her. Elizabeth, who's this Margaret chick supposed to be? I thought her name was supposed to be Rosa or something. Kushina asked the shrunken girl. It's my eldest sister's real name. But it's the violet-haired one you need to worry about. Her magic ability is called Sight, as it allows her to view the future for any length of time. Margaret may be fast, but even my sister can't beat my elder sister Veronica's ability. Elizabeth said, shivering as she looked at her elder sister. So we have not only the next in line for the throne, but the one after her as well, Anko sighed. This is just great, now what are we gonna do? If this princess is as strong as you say, then how are we gonna get past her to speak with Escanor? Satsuki asked. I don't know, but I think he has already figured it out, Meliodas said, pointing to Escanor who had donned the cloak and had stepped up to the princess. Princess Veronica, if I may, she has been my traveling companion for these last few days and has been telling me that she has desired to fight in the fighting festival. If it were alright, would you permit her to participate? He asked her calmly. He had hidden amongst the crowd, but he couldn't be too sure if she knew it was him. Veronica felt her eyes glaze over before she gulped. She knew now just who stood in front of her. I do not see why she cannot stranger-san, but she must know that even if she wins the festival, she cannot take these 2 weapons if she chooses them, back to Lions. She said. Then I do not see a problem here, Escanor said before looking to the arena. If it would please everyone, can we please start this match? He called out loudly, getting cheers from the others that wanted to watch. Alright, then let the final match of the quarterfinals begin. Love Helm announced loudly. Hawk walked over to the princess. A mug of ale, princess, it's only a single shilling. He said to her. Veronica giggled. I guess it couldn't hurt, thank you Mr. Pig, she said holding out a piece of gold. I'll take the barrel for some of my men, so please, take this as payment. She said placing the money in his pouch. Oh thank you, this is very generous of you. The pig said happily as he rushed to give the princess's men a drink. Veronica then stepped up next to the cloaked Escanor. So, care to explain how it is I managed to meet you here of all places? The man asked her, and with my axe of all things. He continued. Grandmaster Hendrickson has found out that this year's fight festival is a trap and sent men loyal to the king alone to get your weapon and bring it to you. However, we did not know that the other sins were going to be here, she said simply. Naruto nodded his head. I see, thank you for doing this. I can only do so much without my axe, so this is a welcome sight. He told her. Don't mention it. The lady smiled back at him. Of course. Now, if you'll please excuse me, I must go before anyone gets suspicious of me, he said before walking off. Margaret looked at Mito. Just because I am a princess does not mean I wish for you to go easy on me, she told her. I wouldn't have it any other way, your majesty, she responded. Thank you. As for my ability, it is called Flash, so I must ask you to use all of your strength to see if you can match up to me, Margaret said before she vanished in a flash of speed. So fast. Mito gasped before she hunched over due to Margaret slamming her fist into the young woman's stomach. Mito was given no time to rest as Margaret began to lay into the Uzumaki woman with super fast punches and even a few kicks. Flash, Margaret declared before she vanished into thin air, a spark of electricity being left behind in her place. Appearing above Mito, she appeared above her and waved her hand and chanted, lightning spree, and her hand expelled several thick bolts of lightning that resembled a tri-star shuriken. The lightning raced down towards the ground, but Mito wasn't all that weak as she had to thank Kurama for rapidly healing her. She was fast, this princess. Alright, my turn, wind style. Vortex. Mito said, channeling her chakra, and expelled it all out of her tenketsu points in her body. Margaret grunted as not only was her lightning dispersed, but she was buffeted by gale force winds, gold shining she declared before she vanished and struck Mito before a flash of light engulfed the Uzumaki. "I honestly can't believe this chick is putting up such a fight and she's so fast too," Satsuki said with wide eyes. "That's because of the princess's magic, Flash. It allows her to move at incredible speeds and use lightning as well to enhance her reaction times and give her powerful lightning attacks," Meliodas informed the Kunoichi as they all watched the fight continue. "It sounds almost like the Raikage's lightning armor," Kurenai said in observation. "Oh, how does it work?" Meliodas asked. "The user usually coats their entire nervous system in a coat of lightning and then expels it out of their body. It increases their speed by a large amount and hardly anyone can ever match them in terms of speed. The last person to do so was my ex-husband," Kushina said. "That's pretty neat. I haven't heard of a human being able to coat their nerves in lightning as it's usually pretty dangerous," the demon prince said and winced when he watched Mito take a kick to the face. "Yeah, it's extremely difficult to do so and if the person is good enough, then they become very powerful due to it," Kushina said. "Earth style. Earthen rampart," Mito called out as several spikes of earth popped up from the ground and shattered to pieces and then shot at Mito who hung in the air. "I'm not done yet, lightning spree," Margaret cried out as she waved her hand and several bolts of lightning tore through the projectiles before impacting the ground and bursting, filling the air with smoke. Landing on the arena platform, Margaret waited for the dust to disperse and curse when she felt the air behind her shift and she used flash to escape from harm as Mito slammed her fist into the ground where she once stood, the arena cracking apart even more than it already was thanks to the previous fights. She appeared by the edge of the arena and she cursed when several spikes of earth rose up in front of her and surrounded her. "Damn it." The princess cursed. "Live up, my main affinity is earth, but I am capable of using all 5 elements and I'm very capable of using other elements too. I'll admit it took a bit of thinking, but I noticed something, you can only move in a linear fashion, so I had to be fast to cut off your movements," she told the princess. Margaret sighed, "I guess I have no choice, I forfeit the match," she said to Lovehelm. "And the winner is Mito," the man declared loudly. Everyone began to cheer loudly as they all were excited for such an amazing display of fights and then the additional prize of another sacred treasure being added to the prize. Lovehelm then began announcing, "Alright, and with that, we have reached the end of the quarterfinals. Tomorrow, we will hold the semi-finals and then the end of the tournament to mark the end of the vital festival, so be sure to come back tomorrow." But that, Lovehelm seemed to have vanished all of a sudden before everyone began to walk away to enjoy the last few hours of the festival before turning in for the night. However, when the Kunoichi and the Sins tried to see if they could meet up with Escanor to talk with him, he seemed to have simply vanished with both Princess Margaret and Princess Veronica. The group sighed, the Sins partially out of relief at not risking the chance that Escanor would fight them, while the Kunoichi sighed out of sadness at missing the opportunity to try and get the lead on Naruto. But, they all knew that they could talk to him tomorrow and that they would have a better shot at one of them getting to the finals with him, which then he would have no choice but to talk to them. However, nobody was aware of the events that would occur the next day or the next events that would follow, but they would soon learn. After all, the key to all of their goals, their survival, and the survival of the kingdom, would rely on the shoulders of the one known as the strongest man in the world. The group of Meliodas and his companions as well as the Kunoichi from the elemental nations left the fight festival with their heads low, for some of them at least, and others with their heads held high. Kushina sat down at a table inside the boar hat with a huff. "I don't understand how someone so big can move so fast," she said to herself. "I didn't know Escanor-san could be so strong," Satsuki said in admiration. "So, what seems to have all of you in the dumps?" Mikoto asked as she brought them some food. "To be honest, a lot," Kushina answered. "Yeah, and then there's the fact that apparently, there's more to this fight than meets the eye," Anko said to her. "Could you tell us?" "I mean we did miss out on the festivities to serve alcohol," Hitomi said smiling. "Okay, first off, these Sins. Easily Kage-level fighters. Ban and Meliodas nearly destroyed the arena they were fighting on. Those two idiots nearly killed each other in appearance, but they were only sparring at most. Oh, and apparently, there is a large mushroom that shrinks people, and it hit both Diane and Elizabeth, and so Diane, being bored, decided to join the festivities," Kushina said huffing. "Did she do any fighting?" Madami asked her. "Fighting isn't the word I would use, more like utterly annihilating her opponent," Mito said laughing. "I almost felt sorry for her opponent," Satsuki laughed out at the memory. "Not Diane?" Hitomi asked. "Oh yeah, that girl is as strong as Tsunade-sama," Kurenai said crossing her arms. "Really?" Tenten asked her. "I know she's strong, but that strong?" "Come on," she said incredulously to the woman. "She is. In fact, she might actually be stronger," Mito said. "So, was that all that happened today?" Hitomi asked the group of women. No, we saw Escanor, Anko said to her. Really? Mikoto, Hitomi, and Tenten asked them. Is he as strong as the Sin said he was? Shizune asked the girls. Yeah, and if you think Meliodas, Diane, King, and Ban were monsters, this guy is worse, Kushina said motioning to the Sins in question, than those four put together, she told them shivering as she remembered Escanor's nigh unlimited power. I'm almost afraid to ask how so, but tell me how so. Mikoto asked. He is powerful, like super powerful. He managed to take a full-on fire attack that looked equal to a great fireball jutsu and come out unscathed, Satsuki said as she recounted the sight. That's impossible. He'd be a pile of ash. Tenten exclaimed. Not this guy, apparently he's immune to fire, Mito said to her friend. How'd he manage to become immune to flames? That has to be an overpowered ability, Hitomi asked her. Nobody knows except the Sins, probably, but he just stood there and acted as if it were a nice breeze blowing. Sure, he lost most of his shirt, but he didn't even seem shocked by it. And his ability, Sunshine. Don't even get me started, one attack had enough chakra in it to rival the combined force of Mito, Satsuki, Anko, Jiraiya, me, Meliodas, Ban, Diane, King, and a couple of holy knights that participated in the match combined, Kushina said to the shock trio. He has that much chakra, Tenten cried out, if anyone had that much chakra, they'd burst from chakra overload, she said in shock. Not this guy. Remember. His power rises and falls like the sun, so he must have something unique that allows him to handle all that power. It's still amazing that anyone, let alone a mere human, can be that strong, Kurenai stated. It's almost like he's as strong as Lord Hashirama if he has that much power. Remember the stories in class. How, Lord Hashirama-sama had enough chakra to match several of the Kage simultaneously. This could be a similar thing, Satsuki said in thought. Not likely, Hana Inyazuka stated as she walked over, if he's as strong as you say he is, then there must be some way to get him to answer the question of where Naruto is, she said. Hana, you don't get it. This guy was holding back, Mito said loudly, he was wearing sealing items that suppressed his power, and the minute he took them off his power skyrocketed to levels that caused even the other Sins began to cower. Meliodas himself has said that there is no person alive that can match him, unless it is a certain time of day. And even then, she has to be really quick to beat him, she told her friend's sister. Shizune came over and sat down next to the ladies, so the question is, how do we get him to reveal Naruto's location? She asked. It's rather simple. He's overconfident, Hitomi said. And how do you know this? Anko asked her friend. Kurenai sighed out in annoyance, remember, Meliodas and the other Sins have confirmed and have told us, he is arrogant and believes his power is the greatest in all the lands. So, by tricking him into revealing Naruto's location, we can simply get our things and go find the little troublemaker, the red-eyed beauty said. But it's not that simple, Mikoto said, it was starting to look like a plan was forming, but even the greatest plans could go bad, he is simply too strong for any of us, she pointed out. Hitomi nodded her head, and that is the only problem I am seeing so far, she said. Maybe my mom and I could bind him using the adamantine sealing chains, Mito offered. It's possible, but we don't know how it will affect the people here. They use a less potent form of chakra, and as far as we know Escanor is the only one that has figured out how to channel his chakra to fight, Tenten pointed out. That doesn't matter, the chains can seal off chakra no matter how potent. If it is made of chakra or uses it, it can be cut off, Kushina stated. She would not miss the chance to find a lead on her son, no matter what the odds were. Meanwhile, Escanor sighed happily as he leaned back in his wagon, today was a good day, he said, shaking a bag of coins he had proffered from his wares. He had not only made it to the next round of the festival, he was the strongest after all, but he had also managed to sell his wares before the end of the day. Man, Britannia ale sure was a divine blessing for him to invest in. So, Escanor, any idea on what you're gonna do after this fight festival? Margaret asked him softly. Try to go back to living in my tavern, but something tells me that's highly unlikely for me now, he said to her. That'd be correct, a new voice said from behind him, causing the duo to turn and see a slightly agitated Veronica Lyons, tapping her foot impatiently. So, care to tell me why you are out of the palace, Margaret, and with a notorious criminal of all people? She asked her big sister. I'm a grown woman, and I'm capable of handling myself just fine, thank you, Margaret said to her little sister adamantly. Escanor raised a brow, is that what she thought a few days ago when they had encountered each other? She was scared out of her mind and looked ready to pee herself. Veronica snorted, and I'm a fairy king in disguise, Margaret, Veronica said before she walked over and grabbed her sister's hand. Come on, the others will want to know where you have been and how healthy you are, she told her. I don't think so, I'm the eldest, or have you forgotten that much, Veronica? She asked, ripping free from her little sister's grasp. Veronica sighed, no, I haven't forgotten, Margaret, but I am still your sister. Besides, how can you trust a criminal like him, especially him? She asked her sister. Margaret snorted, you forget that before he became a criminal he was both a knight and a prince, before his kingdom was destroyed almost 15 years ago, she responded. It doesn't matter, we were told to avoid them, and you disobeyed father's wishes just like Elizabeth has done, Veronica said. Lizzie? She's here? Margaret asked her sister. Yes, she's here, and with the captain of the sins at that, Veronica stated. There you are Princess Veronica, a masculine voice said, I was worried you had gotten lost. Did you perhaps forget why we were told to come here in the first place? The voice asked her, causing them to turn and see Griamore. Ah, Griamore-kun, it has been too long, my student. Where are those other troublemakers of your group, Gilfinder-kun and Hoser-kun? You have gotten big since I last saw you, Escanor smiled. Master Escanor, it is a pleasure to see you once more, the giant of a man bowed. As for Hoser, he is lurking about and ensuring nobody overhears the conversation between us, Griamore told his mentor. As for Gilfinder, he's being forced into submission through Vivian. Dreyfus has some type of spell placed on her that makes her obey him. Somehow, my father has used her as leverage against poor Gilfinder, and now he's practically a dog on a leash due to this, the hulking man told Naruto. Escanor sighed, how unfortunate for the lad, he stated, you said that the three of you had a mission and it involved me, how does bringing my sacred treasure to me involve your mission? He questioned. Griamore cleared his throat, this year's fight festival, it's a trap for the sins. Somehow Dreyfus has found out that you would be here and has sent a contingent of knights to take you out. What he didn't take into account was for the other sins appearing, with you out of the picture the hunt for the others could begin, and we could eventually eliminate the whole order, he told the man honestly. I know that much, Veronica-sama explained it to me earlier today, and who told you to retrieve my axe? He asked. Hendrickson ordered those loyal to the king alone and had us bring it here, Veronica answered before Griamore could, a way to help you along your journey back to redemption and freedom. Also, there are other plans in motion, but we don't know what all they are, but if the rumors are to be believed, he plans on starting a holy war to throw the realm into chaos, the princess said. That's horrible, Margaret said in horror. Many of us agree, but currently, we just aren't strong enough to fight the numbers that Dreyfus has amassed to his side, Griamore said. If the things you say are true, then we must warn the sins immediately, Escanor said. Margaret felt her eyes widen, but you said we had to avoid them at all costs, she stated. Their identity has already been revealed, and the sins already know me by my power signature and look. Their companions are no different, he said to the princess, and then looked to Griamore and Veronica, Veronica-sama, Griamore-kun. Go get Hoser-kun and meet us at the traveling bar the Boar's Hat. There is stuff we must discuss, he ordered as he grabbed Margaret by the hand and climbed into his wagon. Please, meet us as soon as you can at the tavern, he told them as he urged the horse on and watched as it took off at a light trot. Escanor, what's the matter? You're acting strange right now, Margaret said to him. I'll explain everything once we meet up with the other sins my lady, but for right now, trust your protector in what he is doing, he stated as the horse was urged to turn a corner. Escanor, slow down please, I might fall off, Margaret pleaded. However, what she didn't expect was for Escanor to reach around and suddenly yank her around to sit in front of him. Is that better, milady? He asked her. Margaret felt her eyes widen as her cheeks heated up in embarrassment. It's fine Escanor, just please be careful with me up here, would you? She asked him. Escanor didn't respond as he jerked the reins to the left. Hiya, hiya. He urged the horse as he slapped the reins on the beast's neck to get it to break into a gallop. Boar's Hat. This is very strange indeed, a mushroom that can shrink living organisms with microscopic spores, Tsunade said as she checked Diane and Elizabeth over. It was both exciting and unexpected, though the shrinking part was definitely not planned, Diane told the busty blonde. I may have to take some spore cells from both of you to see if I can make an elixir that can reverse the effects of the shrinking, maybe even make a serum that can allow for the same effects, so you can spend more time with us down here, Tsunade muttered, while Diane looked excited at the thought of being able to stay small for longer periods, though. I would need more knowledge about this continent and its various creatures and the energy you all use. Well, Sir King said the effects weren't harmful, but I don't think he mentioned if they would be permanent, Elizabeth said. Well, I want to make sure nothing harmful is happening to the both of you with those spores covering you. Could the two of you hold out your arms please? Tsunade said as she grabbed a scroll from her pack and unfurled it. Of course, Diane said as she placed her arm on the top of the table while Elizabeth merely stuck her arm out for the blonde. A puff of smoke later and a set of medical tools and a microscope were laid out. Diane looked at the equipment in curiosity. These are some strange things. Not even Merlin had these when she was working, the shrunk giantess said looking at it all. I believe it is due to the technological differences that separate the two continents, Tsunade said as she took a cotton swab and dabbed it in some alcohol, and then wiped Diane and Elizabeth's arms before she placed the swabs under the lens of the microscope. So, what exactly do these things do? Elizabeth asked the doctor. The alcohol is a sanitation medicine, it kills any germs that can be harmful, and it allows imperfections to show in the dead cells on the skin. The swab, which is this little thing here, she said holding the cotton swab up, gathers the dead cells together by pressing against the skin and picking up the traces of foreign objects that lay across the skin. I.e. dead skin, blood, plant spores. Anything that can't be seen by the naked eye is gathered in it. The microscope, which is this thing here, allows one to see those things that cannot be normally seen, she explained to them. Here, take a look, she said as she placed the swab she had used on Diane under the lens. The shrunk giantess placed her eye to the lens and immediately withdrew with a gasp. Oh my, you mean to tell me that all of that is on my skin, you? She said in disgust. Yeah, it's pretty bad, but then again something like this must be unheard of even for you guys, Tsunade said. Yeah, because our doctors rely on incantation orbs and basic medicines and herbs to heal us. They don't really care for the small things, especially those things, Diane said pointing to the microscope. Well, I'm gonna need to swab a lot of your skin to get a proper sample of those shrink spores. From both of you, just to make sure the effects are roughly the same, she stated to the two women. Downstairs. Mito sighed as she ate some of Ban's cooking. She hated to admit it, but the man's food put even Ichiraku's to shame, and that was saying something as Ichiraku's was heaven itself, so, Mito was it? The silver-haired man asked and got a nod. Why are the lot of you so desperate to find Escanor? What's the real reason you're looking for the strongest knight in Britannia besides your lost brother? He asked her. He had never really pried into their business, but called him curious. Ever since Hoser appeared and said those things it had been bugging him. Mito shrugged her shoulders. Even I don't know why we're looking for him. I was only told we had to find Escanor to find out where Naruto might be, she said. Ban nodded his head. I guess the higher-ups are always shrouded in mystery, he muttered. Yay, politics are always like that, the blonde teenager said. She then looked at Ban with a curious glint in her eyes. So, how did the Sins first hear of my brother anyways? Your captain mentioned when we first met that he had heard of him, but Hoser, that holy knight that snuck up on us to speak with you, mentioned that the Sins were disbanded for roughly a decade before we arrived, she pointed out. And you would do well to remember that, Ban told Mito seriously. The 7 deadly sins is the strongest order of holy knights for a reason, but before we were even a group, we were all just lost souls waiting to find a purpose in life, he told Mito, as Satsuki sat down next to her, as he placed a plate down in front of her. Really, like each of you was just wandering around with nothing better to do? The Uchiha heiress asked him and the immortal nodded. Yep, lost, alone, and thirsty for some attention, Ban told her with a chuckle. Now before I get into how we have heard of your brother, let me explain a bit about Escanor, so you can better understand our greatest fighter, he told them as he flipped some meat on the grill. Escanor was once a prince of a distant land, a part of a kingdom called Castellio. And this was before he discovered his magic and all the other things that make him who he is today, Ban said as he tossed some seasonings over the meat. He's a prince, Mito said in shock, she was not expecting that. Holy shit. He must be one hell of a prince, Satsuki muttered. Hold on, I wasn't finished yet, Ban started smacking the spoon down on the Uchiha heiress's head for interrupting him. Anyways, while he may have been royal, he had a desire to be a knight rather than rule the kingdom, and so his brother took over and ruled Castellio. Well, while Escanor was over here in Britannia learning to become a knight, a war broke out in Castellio. Bandits had attacked the kingdom and had overrun the state. Escanor pleaded with the King of Lions to send him back as soon as possible so he could try to save his family, but unfortunately, he had asked a bit late on his request, Ban told the two girls. That's so sad, Satsuki said as Ban nodded his head. Yeah, it is, but that's not the worst of it. See, Escanor's home would come under attack by a large horde of barbarians, tens of thousands of them all at once. Well, as many barbarians there were, the kingdom had several thousand knights that could fight the hordes off easily. But they didn't take into account that these weren't the average barbarians, Ban said as he rolled some vegetables onto the burner and sprinkled a hint of salt over them. I thought that there was only one kind of barbarian horde though, I didn't expect for there to be different types of barbarian hordes, Elizabeth said in shock as Diane sat down beside the ninja. Oh yeah, you better believe there is. And it just so happened that this particular horde worshipped the demon clan, and they were very devoted, I guess you could say, to the worshipping of the demon clan, Ban told her. So, if this horde wasn't able to wipe out the kingdom, I'm gonna have to go out onto a limb and say that they did something that was both an advantage and a curse, Hitomi said in wonder as Ban nodded and flipped the cooking meat. Oh yeah, that the idiots did. Barbarians aren't known for their smarts cuz in all honesty, they're a bunch of freaking morons that can't even say their own names right half the time. However, the fact that this horde was devoted to the demon clan allowed them certain things that most other hordes weren't able to get on their own. And it just so happened that this horde, in particular, summoned a powerful ally to help them destroy the kingdom, he told the girls. No, Mito said in shock. Yes, and don't interrupt me when I'm about to tell you what happened, he said, smacking her on the top of her head with a spoon. Itachi. The blonde yelped before she rubbed a sore spot. But yes, the simplified version of the story is this: the barbarian summoned a demon. It was said to be gold in color and was able to stand roughly 20 feet in height. The barbarians were the first to fall to this creature, all wiped out in a single night by this demon, and then the knights fell soon after it had claimed the lives of the horde. Ban stated. So, where does Escanor fit into this tale? Satsuki asked the immortal. His family had been rushed to the castle to protect them. Escanor's mother decided to lead a battalion of the remaining knights into battle, but none of those knights ever returned alive. They were torn apart limb from limb so the beast could feast on its victim's flesh. Escanor's elder brother, the first in line for the throne, decided to lead another battalion to try and beat the demon, only for the process to repeat itself, Ban explained heavily. Damn, that's bad, Tenten winced. If you think that's bad, then wait till you hear this, Ban said as he cleared his throat. As Escanor went to lead another battalion out to battle, his father stopped him. He was the last royal heir, and as such he was considered the next in line for the throne when his brother died. His father decided to take his place, but this time he succeeded in beating the demon, but not only at the cost of his own life, but the rest of the holy knights he led into battle. Escanor found his father, weak and dying, and barely had time to say goodbye before his father, King Michiel, died in his arms. It was here that a second horde of barbarians decided to set up shop in the fallen kingdom, but what they weren't expecting was an infuriated Escanor to be waiting for them, he sighed heavily. What happened? I can assume he fought them or fled from them seeing as he is still here, Kushina stated. He fought them, Ban told her seriously. From what Escanor said, he fought for 4 days and 5 nights against 50,000 barbarians, and on the dawn of the 5th day, he was practically disemboweled and had to hold his organs inside with one hand, and he was on the verge of collapse. He was so caught up in the fighting, adrenaline, rage, and bloodlust that when help from lions arrived, he didn't even recognize the sigil of lions painted onto the flags and charged head into battle even with them. He beat the ever-living shit out of 10,000 holy knights in the blink of an eye, an entire battalion of holy knights that were considered to be the strongest of the strong, and it was here that Hendrickson and Dreyfus finally managed to calm him down, though they did take one hell of a beating from Escanor at the time, he told the women. Mito felt herself gulp heavily in fear. Escanor, she decided, was the one person she would not ever face in combat to the death. Kushina tapped on the bar. Okay, and while I concede to the fact he knows how to fight, how the hell did he not die of blood loss or other injuries? She asked. His power, Sunshine, has the ability to help him recover when he's injured to an extent. But it's not perfect, even for such a scenario where he was fighting for his life. However, we have a special type of bead over here that heals you once it cracks over a person's body. Escanor, however, seared his stomach shut after shoving his intestines back inside so that he could keep fighting, but that only got him so far even for patchwork. His stomach reopened sometime during the battle, and this had allowed them to fall out again, so he just simply held them in his hand and swung his spear, like a man possessed, from what we were told, Ban told the girls. Then how is he still alive? Hana asked in shock. The only one that has the answer to that question is Escanor himself. But he keeps a tight set of lips whenever the topic is brought up. It's one of 3 things that piss him off, and trust me when I say, that is the last thing you want to do, especially with a man like Escanor, Ban said as he piled the food onto plates and set it down in front of them before sticking forks onto the plates. Bon appetit ladies, he said before he walked off. Anko hummed in thought, hey, how come some of what this Escanor guy did sounds familiar, like someone from our home has done it before? She asked. Shizune answered her, it was the 3rd Raikage that did something similar for his friends and allies when he died in the 3rd Great Ninja World War, she told the snake mistress, getting an ah from Anko as she snapped her fingers in realization. 3rd Raikage, the hell is that? Hawk asked in confusion. Not a what, but a who, Hawk-chan. The Sandaime Raikage, or 3rd Raikage as we say back home, was a man that was so powerful many considered him unbeatable. He was blessed with not only immense power, but immense durability as well. Any attack that could have damaged him wouldn't have reached him fast enough to deal with any lasting damage. He was quite a warrior, Tsunade said in admiration for the old lightning wielder. Rumor said he died at 67, but he went down like a true ninja should have, taking as many of his enemies with him as possible. This guy sounds like he'd make one hell of a fighting partner, Ban said smirking. So, how'd he die? He asked as he leaned over the counter. Kuranai cleared her throat. It said that to let his people escape, he used himself as a decoy and faced 10,000 of the enemy alone. Supposedly he lasted 3 days and 3 nights to buy his comrades enough time. It's also said he took every last one of them down with him before he succumbed to his wounds. At the age of 67 he was labeled not only the wisest for his time, but the strongest, and with good reason, she clarified for the Fox Inn. He sounds like he'd be as big a monster as this Escanor person, Hawk squeaked out. Yeah well, from what we're told, Hendrickson was said to have had nightmares of Escanor charging at him with his intestines falling out his body, covered in blood with a look of rage, nearing insanity if the description is to be believed, while his sheer willpower is just so great he was unwilling to give in to exhaustion. It's known as an indomitable will, King told the ladies. And while he could certainly last as long as you said, there's no way he would try and spend all that time fighting. Besides, wouldn't it be much easier to just wipe them all out? He's shown he has the power to do so, Mito said. King sighed. You humans don't understand anything, do you? He asked them. He was fighting 50,000 enemies, it wouldn't be that simple. If this third Raikage faced 10,000 ninjas of high enough rank before he succumbed to his death, then it is almost the same for Escanor. Even for barbarians who are more brawn than brains, they still have a much higher advantage due to their numbers alone, so Escanor would just have that much more of a hard time trying to control himself, he stated. Okay, and while we concede to that, it doesn't explain how he is still alive. Why not just stop when he saw Hendrickson and Dreyfus? Mikoto asked the Fairy King. Okay, let me paint it in a simpleton's fashion, he stated. First off, Sunshine would be focused on fueling his rage, and not only that, he's so caught up in his bloodlust, he can't see straight due to multiple bodily repercussions, i.e., exhaustion from multiple nights of sleeplessness, multiple injuries that would kill ordinary knights. And the sheer amount of grief he would have felt from losing his entire home due to the pointless battle. And why attack the knights? He probably thought they were reinforcements for the enemy, King said to them. Before the discussion could go any deeper, the door was almost literally ripped off its hinges as a hulking frame burst through the door. Ah, shit, sorry about that, Escanor's voice filtered into the ears of the shock group as he moved out of the way for Margaret to rush in, where he placed the door back and closed it. Walking away, the man cringed as the door fell to the ground. Sorry, he said. Still the big klutz as always, Ban smirked. Meliodas looked to the ginger-haired man. Really, my door? He asked him. Sorry about that, I'll fix it when I can, Escanor said, rubbing the back of his head. Oh yay, you'll fix it alright, Meliodas said, poking his hand towards Escanor. So, when did you grow a mini-stache? Ban asked him. Escanor chuckled. I thought it'd give me some class, he said to his fellow Sin. Class, since when did that matter? King asked Escanor in confusion. I wanted to impress Miss Merlin, Escanor said with red cheeks, not noticing how Margaret narrowed her eyes in jealousy at hearing her name. Bro, she's never gonna love you if you don't just tell her, Ban said to the man. I can't impose on her weight. That's not why I'm here, he said, taking them off that train of thought. Well, what is it? I suppose it would have to be important if you came rushing in here hard enough to break my door down, Meliodas said. There's gonna be a contingent of holy knights here tomorrow to kill us, Escanor said. What, a contingent, but why would there be one of those? Diane asked in confusion. Dreyfus has sent them here. Originally they were gonna be for me, but upon finding out about all of you arriving here, he sent 2 battalions of holy knights to rid of us, Escanor said. Damn, it's serious, Ban muttered. And, you're immortal, it doesn't apply to you. We, however, are mortal, King said. So, what are we gonna do? I mean, we can't just fight that many knights and hope to win. This isn't like 10 years ago when we were framed. King said with a sigh. Framed? Elizabeth asked them. For the death of Grand Holy Knight Zaratras, Meliodas said quickly. Who the hell is that supposed to be? Mikoto asked in confusion. These little guilds, Dad, if you want to know the truth, Meliodas smiled. Wait, that was why the Sins were considered criminals? Elizabeth asked in shock. Okay, but why would you guys be framed for the murder of this holy knight? Something fishy is happening, Kushina stated. Escanor shrugged. Not even we Sins know why we were framed. We had gotten a message to meet with Sir Zaratras, but the second we met up with one another to meet, nothing seemed to have happened and everyone was speaking normally. When we reached his chamber of work, we saw his body speared multiple times to a wall and his corpse simply hanging in place. That was when the Knights of the Kingdom arrived and tried to kill us. We did what was right and defended ourselves and fled the area on the captain's orders. Since then we remained in hiding. Until now, that is, he told the redeed. Before we delve into anything else, I want to know one thing from you, Mito said, walking up to him. Where is my brother? Where is Naruto Nai-chan at? She demanded from Escanor. I apologize, young lady, but I will not tell. I swore an oath of secrecy, and I will not break my vow of silence to reveal his location to you, Escanor told her. Please, we just need a general location of where you last saw him. Not the exact location, but the last place you saw him. When we have that, we'll leave you and your comrades to clean your mess up. I just want to bring him home," Mito pleaded with him. "No, and I stand by my vow," he told her before looking to his leader. "Captain, I have summoned Griamore-kun, Hoser-kun, and Veronica-sama to the tavern to explain the situation as they have more intel for us," he told him. "Until they arrive, I request a spot to refresh myself," he told Meliodas. "Yeah, there's a bathroom just up the stairs and to the right after the second door," Meliodas told the man. "Thanks. And it's nice to see all of you again after so long, my comrades," he said pleasantly before going upstairs to clean himself. However, before he disappeared, he heard Meliodas exclaim, "And don't break that door either." The Sins chuckled when they heard Escanor grumbling about midget blondes and not understanding accidents, before Margaret looked to the short blonde tavern owner. "Okay, where is she?" she demanded. "Where's who?" Meliodas asked her. "My sister Elizabeth. The princess that decided to run after you and has been rumored to have joined your bar," the lavender-haired beauty stated seriously. Well, that's a bit of a difficult one to try and explain," King said nervously. "If she has a single hair out of place, you will regret it. Take me to her, now," she commanded the knight. "Hey, I don't care if you are some princess, you don't just order people around like that," Mito said hotly to her. "And I can go to the knights posted here and reveal just exactly where the Sins are and their accomplices and have each of you arrested for conspiring against my kingdom with renowned criminals. So try and stop me from checking on my baby sister, I dare you," Margaret challenged the blonde. And with that, she began to look around for Ellie to see if she was safe from harm. Upstairs. Escanor sighed as the hot water soaked into his scarred flesh. Littering his body, numerous wounds and gouges covered his muscles. The most prominent scar was one that ran vertically up his stomach. Other small scars were noticeable as well, each looking like a chunk of flesh was carved out of his body. Dipping his hands into the water, he brought them out and ran them over his face, splashing the hot water over himself before he ran his wet hands through his hair and dispersing some water through his locks. The man sighed as he leaned back in the bathing water, the cloudy soap hiding anything improper to ensure nobody saw what they shouldn't see. However, his thoughts weren't on relaxing in the hot bathing water he immersed himself in. No, it was on the group of mercenaries downstairs. They had found him, and he could only keep the charade of being a different human up for so long. His only thought was for how long. He closed his eyes and laid his head back, only for the door to slowly open up, causing him to look up and see Hawk walk in. "Oh, hey, Ban asked me to deliver these towels up for you, since he forgot to do so earlier," the pig told him. "Talking pig, that's a first," he muttered to himself before nodding his head. "I thank you, Sir Pig," he told Hawk. "Finally, the recognition I deserve as captain of the Order of Scraps Disposal. You know, I think I may like you most out of these schmucks of your pals," the pig said, getting Escanor to chuckle before leaving the towels and Escanor alone to himself. Back downstairs. Margaret was shocked. "Poor Ellie, what did these people do to you?" she asked her baby sister. "Oh, this was mostly my fault. I was helping Lady Diane look for food and we encountered a rare monster that shrank the both of us," she told the older woman. "A monster?" Margaret asked her, where Elizabeth nodded her head. "Well, as long as you're unharmed I'm glad," she told Elizabeth. Suddenly the door opened and the shocking sight of two more holy knights and Veronica herself entered. "All right, we're here," Hoser cheered. "Time to get drunk," he exclaimed happily. "Hoser, that's not what we're here for, so get it together," Griamore sighed out to him. Seriously, he enters a bar and the first thing he does is holler about getting drunk. He needed better friends. Soon Escanor came walking down the steps in a fresh uniform and his glasses in place while he finished placing his tie around his neck. "I see they came, how nice," he said calmly. "Princess Margaret, Princess Veronica, Princess Elizabeth, please come join us," he said, gesturing to a table. "I've told him to simply call me Margaret, but he insists on still calling me Princess," Margaret sighed out. "Okay, so now that everyone is here, can you please explain to me just why we were told that it was a trap this year? Please," Ban sighed out. "Dreyfus has gone mad with power, and while he has a following, they only number in the hundreds, rather than the thousands that the king has under him. We can't stop him at this point, and it's only going to get worse from here," Hoser said, ignoring the jab in his ribs from Griamore. "He was the son of Dreyfus, can't blame him for sticking up for his old man now, can you?" Clearing her throat, Veronica managed to gain their attention. "While not entirely private to all of the shenanigans that Dreyfus is doing, we have spoken to a source that has figured out your identity, Escanor-san. The plan was to originally send a small contingent of troops to subdue and possibly kill you. However, it has since changed due to the revelation of your comrades back at base dungeon. Hendrickson has been hiding you for a couple of years, but he is unable to any longer. We had been told the location of your home, so we could bring the divine axe Rita straight to you in case of the fight turning into too much for you. Other than that, we're as much in the dark as you," she told him honestly. Escanor nodded his head. "I thank you. It is much faster than having to call it from its resting point so far away and makes it easier to use when close to me," he said to himself. "So, what are we gonna do about these nights under Dreyfus?" Griamore asked. "Yay, you never really spoke of what would happen," Tsunade said to her. "We didn't have a plan. We were told to ensure Escanor survived," Hoser said. "I have the answer, and it's a simple one," Escanor said to them. "We fight, win, and then move on. After that we find the other sins and then clear our names," he told them. The next day. Day 2 of the fight festival was about to get underway and many people were excited. Love Helm was grinning broadly as the crowd gathered whilst the fighters walked up onto the large fighting area. Escanor, Meliodas, Diane, Hoser, Mito, Kushina all gathered and were prepared. Love Helm smiled as he walked up to each of them. "For today's matches, we will be doing this in a similar fashion as to what we did yesterday, but seeing as there are roughly half of our original numbers now, we can do away with the hidden doors and be done with the farce of hiding all the fights. I have taken the liberty of taking the names from the slips of paper you provided yesterday and have mixed them up here. Draw a piece of paper, but don't worry, if you draw your own name, you can hold that paper and draw properly. Just be sure to put it back when you make your choice. But be warned, there are no redos for when you decide, so choose wisely," he told them as he stepped in front of Escanor. "Naruto, you hold the championship, so I will allow you to draw names first," he told him. Naruto hummed as he reached in and moved the names around a bit before he stopped to grab one. Pulling it out, he opened it and showed it to the judge. "Here is my opponent," he said. First match, Naruto Uzumaki vs Kushina. With this announcement, the crowd went wild in excitement. Naruto was unbeatable, and this lady had fought amazingly, so it was sure to be a show. "Lady Matrona, seeing as you won your fight against Griamore-san, I shall allow you to draw next," he told Diane as she reached inside next and drew a name before showing it to him. "Our next fight will be Matrona vs Hoser," he called out as more cheers rose from the crowd. Walking up to Meliodas, he held up the hat. "You're up, little guy," he said happily. Meliodas felt a vein throb in his forehead before he took a deep breath and reached in and drew a name. "I have drawn myself," he sighed. "Well, it doesn't matter, like I said, drawing your name doesn't count, so draw another name," Love Helm instructed him, where the blonde then handed it to him, "and your fight shall be up against Naruto Uzumaki. This means that Naruto shall fight twice to determine the finals, as Mito shall be fighting the winner in the fight between Matrona and Hoser," he called out as the crowd cheered loudly. Veronica looked to the shrunken Elizabeth in her hand. "Don't get too excited, Ellie, it's just a fight. I'm sure Meili-sen will be fine," she told her. "I'll try, big sister," the silver-haired beauty said, smiling. And with that out of the way, let the tournament begin. Love Helm cheered out, "All competitors not fighting, please exit stage right." He instructed them as the group, with the exception being Escanor and Kushina. "You may start whenever you are ready," he told them. Kushina didn't hesitate to leap at Escanor and kick him in the chest with a chakra-enhanced heel with fire chakra that would send a 12-ton boulder flying off into the horizon. However, much to her shock, Escanor not only tanked her kick like it was nothing, and this was saying something as the air behind her opponent was displaced hard enough to set the air itself on fire. "I expected more out of you," Escanor said calmly as he watched her leap back with a simple smile. "Tell me, can you keep going?" he asked her calmly as a small wave of heat seemed to wash over the area. Kushina smirked. "Of course I can, I'm just getting started," she told him as she pulled out a scroll, and with a small pulse of chakra, a sword popped out. "Say hello to Hyperion, the sword of the sun, this should do nicely against your fire," she grinned out at him. "Oh, a fire sword, this should prove interesting," he said, mildly intrigued. "It'll do more than that," Kushina yelled as she charged at him with the sword catching a flame. However, when Escanor began to move his arm around, she came to a halt. "What are you planning to do with that hand?" she demanded. "Hum at me as hard as you can. Otherwise, this match will mean nothing to me," he told Kushina calmly. Kushina grinned. "Don't blame me if you lose an arm," she called out to him. "It'll take more than that much flame and steel to cut me, I assure you." "Set your mind at ease, madam," he told her. Mito gulped nervously. What does he mean by that much flame and steel? "It's a searing hot katana that can sever entire limbs in a single blow. That sword has even cut through steel, I've seen it happen," she said in both wonder and shock. "You'll see. Just make sure you keep an eye on that lower jaw of yours," Ban smirked at the blonde. Kushina meanwhile felt a trickle of sweat run down her cheek. Something told her that her opponent wasn't lying when he said that. Regardless, she ran forward. "I warned you," she yelled as she struck, only to meet the flesh of her enemy, much to her shock. Impossible, how could his skin be that strong to withstand her blade? It wasn't just Kushina either, many civilians and even the other ninja were in shock by the sight. How did he manage to avoid injury from a flaming sword? The Sins and the Holy Knights only smirked at Escanor. He was toying with her. So you have a sword that never fails to kill, he said in observation, while he continued to smile and adjusted his form a bit to look at the redeed beneath him, but what happens if it fails to do so? Do you have any other moves? He asked her calmly. However, what he did next was utterly horrifying. He seemingly turned his hand around to grip the blade before he released a powerful pulse that shattered the sword to pieces and hurled Kushina back a bit as the metal scraps landed around her, with the sound of metal falling to the ground, along with tiny clusters of metal hitting stone at her feet. Minato felt herself gulp, no way, that sword was enhanced with durability seals and senjutsu seals to empower it, and he just shattered it like it was a glass plate, she said in shock. He blocked that sword with one hand and then shattered it almost effortlessly. He's a monster alright, Hoser said grinning, though he did have sweat run down his face as he watched his mentor fight an enemy. Kushina looked to the shattered blade in her hand, no way. Not even my cousin could extinguish this sword, and he has Rinnegan eyes, she whispered in shock. Escanor shook his head, I see your will has been broken. I think the match has been decided, he sighed out and began to turn. However, what he didn't expect was Kushina to yell out at him, not bad, that was nice, but don't count me out yet. Causing him to turn and face her again as she leapt at him, her hands and feet covered in chakra. Don't think that just because you shattered my sword means I'm out of the fight. Escanor calmly raised an arm and ate the blow that came from her foot, a powerful explosion of energy being released through the seal she engraved onto her body last night that would allow her to mimic these knights. She had decided to try and imitate the explosion core of Iwa, so she had made up seals last night that would hopefully give her an edge in the battle against Escanor, though it was a shame to say that each of them only had a few uses in them before the seal deteriorated and faded. The fire engulfed Escanor and shook the platform everyone stood on, causing them to wobble around from the impact. Meliodas felt impressed, she sure does pack a punch. I'm shocked, he said. Now that's a hit. King said, covering his face due to the winds kicked up. Kushina was grinning at Escanor and once more charged at him, throwing some punches and a few more kicks, but nothing really made him move except his blocks to stop her hits. What's the matter, scared to hit a girl? She asked him as she charged a large amount of chakra into her seal that was placed on the bottom of her foot where a natural chakra point rested. I'd move out of the way unless you want to die. She told him as she raced at him. Her foot glowed gold with chakra being charged up into the seal, but when it impacted against Escanor's body, the explosion sent out a shockwave that engulfed the area and smoke briefly after the arena shook once more. When the smoke died down, everyone could see Escanor standing in place. The only damage done was to his shirt, which had a burn around the area that had been hit by Kushina. Kushina felt her eyes widen in shock. What? She exclaimed in shock. Why are you even here? He asked her. That was disappointing, even for me, he stated seriously. I'm looking for my son, and you hold the answer to that question, she told him. You have a long way to go, he told her. Well, if I beat you then that won't be an issue, now will it? Kushina grinned at him. I see, well look no further, he told her. This confused her. What do you mean by that? She asked. As I said, look no further, he told her as he raised a foot into the air before stamping it down, which released a pulse of sorts before something unseen impacted against her, where the power of the blow could be seen coming out her back. Kushina coughed up a gob of blood. That hit was stronger than it looked. The redeed landed in a roll before she fell off the arena, thus making Escanor the winner. Just one hit to her, and she's already beaten. No way, Kurenai gulped in nervousness. He was incredibly durable, and he was still able to dish out such a devastating blow against one of the strongest women in the elemental nations with such devastating ease. This guy wasn't human. Holy crap. Did you guys see that? He didn't even touch her and he still won the fight. Anko cried out in awe. Yeah, we saw it. Minato gulped nervously. And the winner by ring out is Naruto Uzumaki. Love Helm called out as the crowd cheered and clapped for him. Next up, it's Matrona versus Hoser of Lions. He announced as Escanor walked down the stairs. Nodding to Hoser, he let him pass and joined the group he had joined last night, if only for a time, until he could go back to his bar and live in solitude. Watching his student fight was humorous in itself. Then again, it has been a decade, so he was proud to see him progress so well. He only shook his head when he got flustered over some skin. Seriously, had he not visited a brothel before he was a knight? The ladies loved the knights. He had more tail on him when he wasn't a criminal than he could remember, and more often than not, he turned them down so he could get to where he was going. He would give Hoser this though, the boy had an impressive ability to create cyclones with but a punch of a fist. Though, Escanor only shook his head when Hoser looked so shocked as Diane stopped his hand from hitting her using the palm of her hand. Of course, this wasn't without a slap, but Hoser seemed in need of it. In the end, Hoser lost the fight, but he had indeed put up a fight of his own. He only felt sorry for his apprentice's gut from when Diane briefly used her heavy metal to fall to the ground and land on Hoser. But all in all, he did decently. He had already come up with a set of things for the kid to do to improve himself. Once again, Hoser felt a shiver run up his spine. There's that feeling again, he thought to himself as he looked over to Escanor, only to pale when he saw a familiar shadowed look on his face. It was the same look he remembers Escanor having when he was having to correct and then come up with brutal training for himself, Griamore, and Gilthander. And the winner is Matrona. Love Hem declared loudly. Griamore had hopped up and laughed at Hoser. You got knocked the fuck out. He laughed at Hoser. I'm glad my misery brings you joy, jackass, now help me up, Hoser told the muscular man. Helping Hoser get down, the Holy Knight looked to Veronica and laughed. I think I did pretty good, even if it was one of them. Hoser laughed at his loss. You should have gone all out from the start, yet you lost because you held back. I get the feeling that you only did it cause she was a girl, Griamore sighed at his friend. No I didn't, Hoser blushed. Dude, you so totally did, didn't you? Griamore laughed out at the blonde. Shut up Griamore. Hoser yelled. Now, we'll be taking a break from the fighting so that we can get the stage fixed, so all you go and enjoy the festival while we get this repaired for the next fight, Malide Afu vs Naruto. Love Helm declared loudly as the crowd shouted happily. The crowds began to disperse while the Sins, Kunoichi, and Holy Knights all gathered together. So, since we now have to wait for the stage to get fixed, what should we do now? Diane asked as she was hoping to get back to fighting soon. Well, since we already know about the Holy Knight's plans to attack us, it's only a matter of when, but that doesn't mean we can't enjoy the festival, Escanor replied since he hadn't had a chance to enjoy the festival, as he had been busy selling his wines and alcohol before heading straight to the fights. Well, I guess we can all simply relax and enjoy ourselves until the fights continue later, but don't forget to keep your guards up. We never know when the Holy Knights will decide to launch their attack, Meliodas said, getting everyone to nod in agreement. Margaret and Diane swiftly wrapped their arms around an arm of Escanor's before he also felt someone sitting on his shoulder, which turned out to be Veronica. Blinking, Escanor asked, what are you three doing? Well, since we need to be careful, we thought it'd be better if we went with you, Margaret said with a mischievous smile. I'm not that bad. If anyone needs to be looked after, I think you need to go with the captain rather than me. At least I'm good at hiding in plain sight, he told them as he pointed to the blonde in question. Well that's true, you also tend to have your moments where you can't help yourself, Veronica said as she lightly swung her legs, enjoying the view from Escanor's shoulder. Such as? Escanor asked. Really? What about that time when I was 10, you set the entire forest outside the castle on fire trying to spell my name? We weren't even able to reclaim it as good forestry and had to convert it all into farmland, though I will say you made the soil quite fertile, Veronica said smiling. It was one time, and I was 17, lay off woman. Escanor exclaimed in embarrassment. Oh yay, well, what about the day my father turned 46? You released your sacred treasure and created that lake down by the gate, Lake Penance I believe. Margaret smiled at him. I was drunk. You hit, and was this before or after the captain flashed you Merlin's tits? Diane laughed out at Escanor. I will not dignify that with an answer. You say that now, but we know the truth, Diane smiled brightly. With that, the group began to laugh as they had fun messing with Escanor before they all separated, though Veronica continued to sit on his broad shoulders. It would be a few hours, but eventually, the call was sent out for everyone to come back to witness the fights. With that announcement, Naruto once again returned to the platform. I am looking forward to this fight, Captain. Do entertain me, he told the short blonde as he stood across the arena from him. Meliodas laughed, just make sure there is something left of me when we're done alright? He asked the man. Needless to say, Meliodas was not looking forward to getting his ass kicked. I cannot promise you that, for this is a fight between gods today, he told the shorty standing in front of him calmly. Alright, as stated before yesterday, all forms of magic are permitted, weapons are forbidden, and the only way to win is by knockout, ring out, or all other forms of defeat, with the exception being death. Let the next match begin. Love Helm called out. And with that, Meliodas shot off in a flash and appeared behind Escanor, only to cough up spit as he held his gut. You nasty fighter, would you go and do that for? He asked his comrade. Don't think that this is like when we first met, I have greater control over my magic than back then, Escanor said as he closed his eyes and leaned out of the way as Meliodas tried to kick him. However, a pulse of energy cracked the arena once again, only this time the amount of force was enough to tear a large chunk off the wall of the platform where it crashed down to the ground below. What are you trying to do, kill me? Meliodas asked, pointing to the smoke filling the air. That wasn't even close enough to hurt you, Captain. Try something else, I want to test myself as much as possible here, Escanor grinned, and I'm not talking about your food either, he pointed out. Meliodas leapt at Escanor, only to be swatted away with the flat of the man's bare hand. Escanor then raised his hand into the air and gripped it into a fist, and with a yell, he gathered his magic and slammed it down into the ground with such force that the entire platform cracked into 4 sections, cratered the fighting area. And toppling the Gideon hammer from its place of rest at the same time. Geez, he has to be as strong as Bachan. Mito exclaimed as she covered her eyes from the fierce winds howling past her ears. He did all that damage with just a single blow of his hand, damn it, this guy doesn't play around, does he? Mikoto grunted out. When the shaking and the blast died down, it was a shock to the watching people, for barely an inch away from the impact spot of Escanor's fist was Meliodas' head. Meliodas gulped, I thought you said you'd refrain from trying to kill me? He asked his friend. Strange, I don't think we agreed on that, Escanor hummed as Meliodas rolled out the way as Escanor raised a foot up and then slammed it down where Meliodas once laid, releasing a powerful blast of pressurized heat that struck Meliodas, only for it to have hardly any effect. Oh ho, not bad captain, he told him. Man, it's times like this I'm glad to have counter-cancel in my arsenal of abilities, Meliodas gulped. Escanor really wasn't playing around here, sheesh. Escanor raised his fist into the air as it became engulfed in flames before he swung at Meliodas. Meliodas saw what looked like a sun and knew that this strike would be dangerous to his health. Meliodas quickly leapt into the air, damn that was close, he muttered as he watched Escanor hit the ground precisely where he stood and it cratered even further into the ground. But that he went on the offensive and struck his comrade, causing him to stumble back as he appeared behind Escanor. He suddenly felt his face being grabbed and he's as fast as ever, he grunted as he was lifted 12 feet into the air, only to grunt in pain as Escanor smashed him onto the ground, further cratering the ground. As Escanor released Meliodas, he clenched his fist once again and proceeded to throw it, but once more Meliodas rolled out the way as the fist struck with frightening force. Meliodas once more appeared behind Escanor, he fist beeped back, and as Escanor turned to face him, a seemingly dark mark appeared above his eye, just as his fist connected to Escanor's own, which caused the ground to bend down under the force. Oh, it seems like you finally take me seriously, Captain, Escanor said before he grinned broadly, now show me more. He bellowed out as he called upon more of his massive strength. But the two began such a brutal fight, it was more intense than that which he shared with Ban the day before. The shockwaves that the two released with each collision was so great that none could gaze at them, the force of hits that when they missed, diminished the fighting spot more and more with each passing second. Blow after blow, strike after strike, the two monsters brutally fought with all they had in them. The two would more often than not smash their fists together with frightening power, crumbling away the arena bit by bit. Hell, at one point they were simply walking around in a circle trading swift blows, trying not to fall off before they had to leap away from each other. With two grunts, the dragon Sin of Wrath and the all-powerful lion Sin of Pride removed themselves from their opponent's strike area and roughly stood on an 8 by 12 foot space that was roughly a quarter of the original space to fight on. The two then charged, ready to continue fighting, but they suddenly stopped, confusing everyone as they sensed something coming from the distance. This was shared by the other Sins and the Kunoichi as they all moved over to stand together. All of a sudden, the entire area became filled with an intense heat as they heard someone clear their throat and looked to see it was the one known as Naruto who had stepped forward. Hello everyone, I would like to say something now if you don't mind, he spoke. Everyone was muttering about what was going on when they froze at what he said next. My real name is Escanor Pride and I'm one of the 7 deadly sins, the lion Sin of Pride, and I would like it very much if you would all leave. Everyone was shocked, but before they could do anything, suddenly, everyone saw as a large number of fireballs started heading towards the town, causing panic when a few of them hit and exploded, not injuring anyone, but destroying a lot of homes. However, right before the rest of the fireballs could hit the more populated areas, all of them stopped before disappearing, as if they were being absorbed. Everyone watched as the fireballs formed together above Escanor's hand, causing an intense amount of heat, before he threw it at the mountain, causing it to explode and rip a hole in the mountain. At this, everyone began to run away, heading for safety as they now realized that the infamous group known as the 7 Deadly Sins were in their very town. Would you do that? I thought we were supposed to remain inconspicuous. Hawk exclaimed as he ran over with Minnie Elizabeth on his back, as she had been placed there when everyone moved together. Escanor looked down at Hawk, who was now more at his waist due to him shrinking minutely, since he was still wearing his glasses, but also because it was now mid-afternoon, so while he still had plenty of power, he wasn't going to be able to use his full might anytime soon, but he was by no means a pushover. Another explosion ripped through the air. Escanor opted to ignore them as he looked to the ninja. I suggest you call upon your allies, we shall need all the help here we can get. Be fast though, cause I doubt we can hold them off for long with how they are moving, he told them before looking to Diane. Diane, I would hurry to Gideon, do whatever you have to do to ensure we do not lose that weapon, he told her, where she nodded and ran off the edge of the arena. Okay, well, what about Rita? I don't think it's gonna vanish anytime soon, but I wouldn't leave it lying around for these guys to take away, Margaret said to him. The FFFT, ha 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 ha. The Sins laughed, some holding their bellies due to the hardness of their laughter. Parry it away, oh my god, that's a good one. Ban laughed out. Like they'll be able to move that thing, hahaha. Meliodas laughed. Haha, I'd like to see that happen, I'll even let them melt it down and keep the gold from it. Escanor chuckled as he held his hips with his hands. It's not that funny. Margaret yelled at the three men. You don't know how funny it was. King said before he busted his gut once again. Already tears were forming in the four men's eyes from the sheer absurdity of their laughter. Margaret felt her eye twitch in annoyance. Weren't they supposed to be doing something like, oh say, fighting rogue holy knights? Escanor then cleared his throat again, though he had to hold back a laugh, as he said, anyway, we don't need to worry about Rita, because even if they are proper holy knights with high enough magic and power, they wouldn't be able to lift Rita, as there are only 3 people capable of moving her with ease, 2 of which are here amongst us. Well, we need to make sure nothing happens to Margaret, Veronica, or Elizabeth, especially since Elizabeth is in no position to run away without assistance due to how small she currently is, King said, finally calming down. Good idea. King, go with Diane to make sure nothing happens while she's retrieving Gideon. Hawk, you and Escanor take Princess Elizabeth and Princess Margaret to the tavern. Make sure you aren't seen, Meliodas told them. Ban, try to help evacuate the civilians. Avoid all contact with the holy knights here and make sure that you remain hidden at all times. I'm going to stay behind to try and draw their attention from you, he ordered. Let's go. The men shouted as they took off to do as they were assigned. Hawk began to gallop away with Elizabeth on his back, with Margaret and Escanor following behind him, as Escanor held Margaret in his arms to make sure nothing happened. As the 4 of them were running, they passed Rita, getting Escanor to look at it briefly, remembering how his life had gone so far, before he looked forward and continued to run with Hawk. As they ran, they heard explosions in the distance, but they knew their goal was to simply get Hawk, Elizabeth, and Margaret to safety. Meanwhile, Meliodas. After everyone left, Meliodas decided that if he was gonna play bait, then he might as well have a drink while he waits for someone to come. So, here he was, standing in the middle of the destroyed stage, with his broken sword in hand and a beer mug in the other, while he chugged down some alcohol. Suddenly, he heard footsteps walking towards him, so he put down his mug and saw that it was Gila who was approaching him while wearing a full bodysuit of armor, as she held a lance. Eventually, Gila stopped a small distance away from Meliodas. It's been a while, Meliodas, she said in her normal sweet voice, though Meliodas could easily tell that she wasn't trying to be nice, as he could sense the killing intent that was flowing from her. Hey Gila, what brings you here today? Meliodas nonchalantly asked while he raised his free hand, not at all worried. That sword you carry actually. Give it to me, she demanded. Meliodas lost all the friendly look he had on his face. You'll have to kill me in order for me to give this up, and I won't go down without a fight that won't end without you dead at my feet, he told her. I'm glad to arrange that for you, Gila said, smiling as she held up the discarded goddess amber that Veronica tossed aside. Speaking a series of enchantments, Meliodas felt his eyes widen before he was sucked away and into the crystal, and the green sword fell to the ground with a clatter. Not even the mighty captain of the 7 deadly sins can stand against such a powerful holy artifact. How intriguing. You must have been a truly desolate being if you couldn't budge away from it, she muttered as she picked up the broken sword, but regardless, my mission is complete, she said to herself. She wondered how Jericho was doing against the other sins. With Ban. After he separated from the group, Ban simply wanted to take it easy, since there were hardly any civilians left. So he simply decided to stroll around town while looking for anything that caught his interest. However, he suddenly had to dodge a rock that came flying at his head, drawing his attention to it. This, however, left him wide open for someone to appear in front of him, with a sword poised to strike his chest. They suddenly pierced his chest, but the speed it was done at was so great that it caused Ban and his attacker to shoot backwards until they slammed into a building, causing the sword to go deeper into his chest, while he spits up blood. Ban looked down to see a woman wearing a set of slightly erotic pink armor, as it had an opening in the chest piece to show off her mid-C cup breasts that were being hugged nicely within a black lace bra, and then a metal skirt with a crimson cape that wrapped under the back half of her metal skirt, showing that she wore a set of black garter belts and matching black lace panties. Finally, she had shoulder-length lavender, almost silver hair. But the strange thing about her were the pure blackish purple eyes she had that seemed to lack emotion. Now this is how all festivals should be celebrated. Ban laughed out before he looked at her in confusion. Wait, hold on a second, do I know you? He asked. My name is Jericho, and I've been looking forward to finding you again, Ban of the Seven Deadly Sins. As for you knowing me, would it help if I said I was the holy knight apprentice that you humiliated back in based prison? The now revealed Jericho said, as she moved the sword further into Ban's chest. Ban, ignoring the sword and the blood he was coughing up, suddenly had a look of realization. Oh yeah, you're that barber boy from back then. I didn't know you were into cross-dressing. This caused a tick mark to appear on Jericho's forehead, and she clicked her teeth before removing her sword from Ban's body and began to attack at an incredible speed as she shouted, Godspeed 10 flashes. With that, Ban found himself covered in wounds, but the strange thing was, they weren't healing. Jericho walked over to him before stomping on his body, causing a splash of blood, with a drop landing at the corner of her lips. She could only smirk now. With this, I can feel like a true woman. She then used her thumb to smear the drop of blood across her lips, acting like lipstick, before she said, and maybe even gain Escanor's attention. Hearing this, Ban couldn't help but groan, both from the pain and Jericho, as he had one final thought before losing consciousness, that damn Escanor and his subconscious playboy self. With that, Ban lost consciousness, while Jericho seemed to be temporarily lost in her fantasies that consisted of her and Escanor in an X-rated setting that caused a blush on her cheeks. But Diane and King. As the two rushed over to where Gideon should have been, Diane and King were shocked to find that Gideon was gone. Wow, what happened to Gideon? King exclaimed in shock. How does something the size of the damn rock that they were fighting on simply vanish into thin air? Was it an invisibility spell? No, it couldn't be, but where did it go? Suddenly, they heard groaning and looked to see an elderly man who was injured and lying nearby. Diane ignored the fact her sacred treasure was missing and decided to fulfill her duty as a holy knight and rushed over to the elder laying on the ground. Hold on, are you okay? She asked him. I am fine, he groaned out to her. Please don't move, we'll find some help for you, Diane told him. Looking around, she couldn't see anyone that could possibly help. Even King wasn't able to help the old man without potentially becoming a bigger target for the people of the town. Diane, the serpent sin of envy, and King, the bear sin of sloth, by order of King Bartro of Lions, you are hereby ordered to surrender yourselves immediately for punishment fit for your crimes against the kingdom. Stand down immediately, Marma spoke in a sneer towards the two. King held a hand up to the man to try and make sure nothing escalated past talking. Listen, we need to help this old man, he's been injured. He needs immediate treatment. Please allow me to heal him, he pleaded to the knight. You refuse His Majesty's most generous offer of surrender. I must say justice will be very painful for you, and I shall take great joy in serving upon you. The knight said as he pulled a couple of rattles. What was he, a baby? Out from behind his back and began to shake them furiously. Fall to my glorious power, gravity X70. He called out as the ground began to crack and crater under the sins. Hey, Marmas, what the hell do you think you're doing? There's a civilian over there. Stand down right now. That's an order. Hoser ordered as he ran up to try and stop the violence. That is not possible. Our orders were to eliminate the 7 deadly sins, and I aim to do just that. Stand in my way, and I shall eliminate you too. Marmas yelled out. Diane grunted as the ground was pushed down even further. Without hesitation she grabbed the elderly man and threw him. Hoser, catch him. She cried out just as the ground collapsed underneath her and King. Hoser caught the elderly man and set him down before looking at Marmas. You disobeyed a direct order from a superior officer. I hope you are prepared to meet the hanging noose. He bellowed out to Marmas angrily. I specifically ordered you to stand down for the presence of an innocent civilian, and you did not heed my words. Your punishment will not be a light one. Death will probably be the best thing for you. He roared out. Marmas snorted, as if anything like that will be judged upon my sense of justice. I will look forward to seeing this be proven wrong, sir, Marmas sneered at him. However, as the two began walking away while arguing, they completely missed King flying out of the chasm. Along with a plume of smoke that popped out from the chasm, while a large orange leotard was dropped while a person wearing a yellow raincoat walked into some bushes. Back with Escanor, Hawk, and the princesses. The group was still running through the town, trying to hurry to the Boar's Hat so that they could leave Margaret and Elizabeth where it was safe, since Hawk's mom would be able to swiftly leave and take them to safety if need be. That is if the giant pig hadn't died in the time he had been gone. Hurry. We need to get these two to safety already so that we can come back and help the others. Escanor exclaimed to Hawk, his height getting shorter by the moment. He really needed to remove his glasses so he could get a faster speed. As they were running, they suddenly saw Ban's unconscious body in their path, with his body covered in wounds that were healing at an extremely slow rate. Ban. Escanor shouted as they swiftly moved over to check on the unconscious immortal. Seeing that Ban was fine, simply unconscious, Escanor looked to Hawk. Do you think you can take him too, or do you need me to carry him? It's okay, just leave it to me. Sir Hawk, captain of the Order of Scraps Disposal. Hawk exclaimed before he grabbed the back of Ban's jacket with his mouth and they continued running, with Ban being dragged due to Hawk's height. Though, none of them were worried about that, since he would be fine anyways. As they began to exit the town and see the boar's hat within sight, they saw the Kunoichi were making their way back to town. Escanor, Hawk, Margaret, Elizabeth. Are you all alright? Kushina asked as they made their way to each other. Yes, we're fine, but we need to get Margaret and Elizabeth inside the boar's hat. It's safe there thanks to some defensive runes that I placed earlier during the break for the stage to get fixed. Once these two are safe inside, I'll rejoin all of you on the front lines, Escanor said, getting the Kunoichi to nod, but before anyone could move, they suddenly heard metal footsteps. Escanor Pride, the most powerful man to have ever walked this land and world in 3,000 years, I have finally located you. A masculine voice said, stopping them. Suddenly, before anyone could react, Escanor tossed Margaret at Kushina, while everyone saw as a sword that was oozing a deep magenta pierced Escanor's torso. Everyone was shocked to see this as they saw a man with green hair, facial hair, an eye patch, and then orange armor standing behind Escanor, holding the blade. I am Helbram, a holy knight under the direct employment of Sir Hendrickson and Sir Dreyfus. I am here to accept your unconditional surrender, and, your severed head, Helbram told Escanor with a sinister look, while the other saw Escanor fall forward. Escanor no. A cry rang through the air. So this part ends here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, so quickly like this video for second part of this series. And comment down below your thoughts about this series. And now it's time for me to go, bye.